future of the workforce. It's literally just me and AI.
We're definitely going to be talking a lot more about AI and coding and vibe coding.
On the technical revolution defining our era, artificial intelligence.
AI is changing the business world faster than the internet ever did. Companies are scaling revenue with fewer employees, and others are shutting down completely. If you're a business owner, employee, or a recent grad, this affects you right now. But here's the good news. You're not too late. In this video, I'm gonna break down AI automation in a way you will understand. No jargon, no hype. So by the end, you're gonna be 100% fluent in AI automation. You'll know how to use AI to automate your brand, your business, and even your inbox. Because if you don't learn this right now, somebody else will, and they're going to outperform you with half the effort. And this is exactly how I've been able to scale my Inc. 5000 agencies to $800,000 a month while working remotely in my penthouse. This skill has allowed me to scale with an unfair advantage, and that's what I want to teach you today. Now, here's what AI automation superpowers can actually do for you. You can automate your personal brand, from idea generation and script writing to scheduling content and running engagement workflows. You can build fully automated client acquisition systems, one that finds leads, writes messages, and sends emails, voicemails, even direct mail. You can create offers that you can sell at scale, or you can use them as reverse lead magnets to bring people into your ecosystem. You can replace entire sales teams with AI that reviews calls, writes custom proposals, and books appointments. I even replaced my executive assistant with AI agents that manage my inbox, travel, calendar, and more. And the truth is, it's just the beginning. This video isn't going to be about chasing the latest tools or trends. The tools change every day, and they change fast. This is about changing the way that you think in this new world. Now let me show you exactly what we're working on today. Follow me.
All right, so strap in with me. Here's what we're gonna be going over today. First, we're gonna be talking about some AI automation basics. We're gonna be talking about some of the biggest possible opportunities for both business owners and employees. We're gonna go through some common misconceptions, and I'm gonna show you the best way to learn AI and to keep learning AI so you don't fall behind. Then I'll show you a secret way to get some of these tools either for free or at a massive discount. Then we're gonna break down AI automation into two separate chunks, automation and AI. So we're going to talk about how to learn automation, the tools, the trends, what are workflows versus agents, how can you leverage templates and leverage AI to help you build automations. I'm going to be walking you through some basics on integrations, webhooks, and API calls. Then we're going to go over AI specifically, the large language models, and the strengths and weaknesses between Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT, and how to always stay up to date on which one is best. Then I'm going to show you how to take it from inside of ChatGPT.com and use AI inside of automations to become AI automation. I'm also going to show you some really neat tricks for using AI to generate creatives like graphics and video. Then some basics on prompt engineering and how to really nail down your prompts. Then we're going to get a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about scraping, how to scrape anything on the internet, how to use it in your automations, and then some practical use cases that you can copy and paste into your own work. And then we're going to talk about knowledge basing, free tools that you can use, how to set up knowledge bases really quickly, use cases for them, and how to use knowledge bases inside of automations. Then we're going to touch on vibe coding. You can now build software, applications, and websites just by talking to an AI model. It's unbelievable. I'm going to show you how to master that as well. So my goal is by the end of this, you are going to be an absolute savage and master at AI automation, whether it's going to be for your job or for your own business. You're going to be fully literate and you're going to be able to go and start building. All right, so let's start with some AI automation basics, how to think about AI automation and what it even means. So right now is an interesting time where we're kind of at this crossroads. See, business owners right now are mostly concerned with cutting staff so that they can grow revenue and automate a lot of basic tasks, admin tasks. As you can see across the biggest companies like Google and Apple, they're not hiring entry-level roles anymore. They're replacing all of those admin roles, HR, billing, VAs, all of that is now getting replaced by AI. And we're also starting to replace our creative roles, where one graphic designer or one video editor now has the capabilities to produce as much as 100. This allows you to spend more of that revenue serving more clients, spending more on marketing, and spending more investing into your client and your service. And without AI automation, you're going to be spending more on your operations, which means those who are spending less on their operations are going to scale much faster than you, and you're going to be in big trouble. And let's face it, Entry-level roles have high turnover. They're coming in with very little experience, so you have to train them. Then you have to replace them. And eventually you have to promote them and do it all over again. If you're able to automate that with AI automation, not only do you not need to train or replace or account for human error, but it gets better and better with time. So what if you're an employee or a recent grad? Well, yeah, you should be very concerned about the job market right now, because if you're coming out of school with even a law degree, you're going to be in big trouble, because a single lawyer is now going to be able to produce as much as 100 lawyers used to be able to by knowing, understanding, and leveraging these tools. But the good news is, if you learn this stuff right now, if you watch this entire video and implement what I teach you, you're going to be able to 5x your salary by being that single lawyer who's 100 times more productive than everybody else at the company. Or better yet, if you learn these skills no matter what profession that you're in, because AI is touching everything, you're going to be able to get a job anywhere, and you're going to be able to produce more and get paid more. It is a non-negotiable for getting hired in today's market. In fact, I wouldn't even consider hiring anybody who was not AI literate. Now, there's some common misconceptions about AI, about automation, that are plaguing especially the older generation right now and holding you back and could eventually be your downfall. So if you're 40 plus and you're looking at this stuff and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to understand this, I talk to people your age all the time who are better than me at this stuff. It's possible. You just have to take the time and be willing to learn a new skill. But some common misconceptions that, one, you're too old to learn AI automation because you're not good with technology and you don't know how to code. Well, the whole point of AI automation is to make it so easy that you don't need to know those things. In fact, your knowledge of business and the problems that businesses face is actually going to give you superpowers when you actually implement this stuff. Another misconception, I hear this on the news all the time, that this is all hype, it's all a bubble. Believe me, it's not. This is touching every aspect of our economy, every aspect of our business, and it is reflecting quickly in job changes in the way companies are hiring and training. This is here to stay, and it's only going to get more and more prevalent and more powerful. You either learn this stuff or you go into an industry that is not going to be doing any online services. Now, if you think that AI automation won't help your business because it's not relevant, because maybe you do vending machines or something like that, I promise you it still is. This touches every aspect of my business: the marketing, the admin, the billing, the sales, literally everything that I can possibly implement AI automation for, I do, and it helps me scale my revenue without scaling my team. And this isn't really a misconception, but I feel like it's worth mentioning because a lot of people fall into this trap, whereas when they start learning this stuff, they feel like they need to automate everything. So follow this general golden rule. You should only automate it if it happens frequently enough to be a nuisance or you have to hire somebody to do that thing. For example, we have dog sitters that come and watch our dogs when me and my girlfriend go out of town. She had the idea of when the dog sitter needs to come that we automate sending them instructions for staying at the penthouse and taking care of the animals. Well, that really only happens like once every 2 or 3 months. So is it really worth building an automation for that? Probably not. It's probably better time spent building an automation for something else. All right, now arguably the most important slide and topic in this entire video is the best way to start learning, keep learning, and not fall behind when it comes to AI automation. So how to learn AI automation and not fall behind? Well, there's a couple things that I want to point you and instruct you to do even before finishing this video. The first is to join online communities that are actively teaching and talking about AI automation. Obviously, I have my own. It's going to be linked down below. It's the AI Automation Insiders. It's totally free to join. There's a lot of other people in there obsessed with AI automation, a lot of beginners too, that are talking about these new tools and strategies and how to get unstuck. And whether you join mine or somebody else's, you need to get involved inside of these communities because they're teaching and they're discussing. And a lot of times it's the discussing where you really learn because there's a lot of nuance involved. So go find these communities, go on YouTube and follow these creators. See which ones you resonate with. And I'm going to recommend some other creators that I follow that help me along my journey. But the goal is to really surround yourself by it, to always be intaking new information, watching new videos, seeing the discussions, seeing the new trainings. Follow them on YouTube, follow them on Instagram, whatever platform of choice that is for you. It could be Reddit. And then start engaging and start learning. There's a lot of free information out there, just like this video, that you can go to learn just about any skill that you want related to AI automation. All right, so that's the first thing, surrounding yourself by it, joining the communities, following the YouTube channels. And down in the description, I'll have some communities and YouTube channels that I recommend you start with. The second thing that I highly recommend that you do is to find somebody to help you get unstuck. No matter how many training videos you watch or how many automations you build, you're going to get stuck. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to AI automation, especially because you're not just interacting with one or two tools. Typically, you're interacting with hundreds of tools, whatever your software stack is, and then new tools that arise. You need to figure out how to interact with it. So for that reason, you're going to get stuck, and you're going to need help getting unstuck. So one thing that's been transformational for me is there's a lot of people out there that are really good at AI automation. They're just not so great at making money. And I've hired 2 of these people. They're in my WhatsApp chat. I pay them $500 per month. And every time I run into a roadblock, film a Loom video, put it in the WhatsApp chat, and they help me through it. Now, if you're looking for somebody to do this for you, you can go into my AI automation community, the AI Automation Insiders, and ask for help, and somebody will be able to be that person for you. Or alternatively, you can just post your Loom videos and issues inside of the channel, and my team will help you through it. And the third way to start learning and not fall behind is to start building and keep building. No training is going to show you how to build an automation end to end because it's all so nuanced and so custom. This is why templates only usually get you about 70% of the way there. The way that you really learn is by building and getting stuck and then getting unstuck and figuring it out and learning what your new capabilities are. Now, if you're just getting started, here's a few really helpful resources to help you save as much money as possible and get as many of these tools for free as you can. So there's a couple things that are really interesting, especially if you're just getting started. The first is N8N. So this is kind of the main tool that we're using now for automation. And they actually have a community edition where you can self-host it on your own server. We'll talk more about that later. And essentially get N8N for free, unlimited, which is a big change from back when we were using Zapier. You can also come to vault.leadgenj.com and see what sort of deals are available. If you don't feel like reaching for N8N because it's a little bit more complex, you can get make.com free for 12 months here, as well as some other incredible deals on tools we're going to be talking about today. Appify for web scraping, Phantom Buster for automation, DigitalOcean for self-hosted N8N. There's deals here that you won't find anywhere else on the internet, so I recommend coming here and checking if the tool you're looking for may exist inside of this deal vault before paying full price. So let's kick this off by talking about the automation part of AI automation, which is using these no-code tools to automate different tasks and operations inside of your life or your business. And there's essentially 3 main tools in this category that are worth talking about that I'm going to be chatting about today. But you should know there's tens of them, and you should not get distracted by all of the different marketing and free tools that are out there. You should listen to what I say, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time. So all 3 of these tools essentially do the same thing. They take what developers used to build to connect apps together using APIs and actual code and turn it into a drag and drop format, just like what Elementor did for website building. It's taking actual code and making it really user-friendly. So non-developers like me and probably yourself are able to build really complex and unbelievable softwares and automations without having any coding experience. Now, I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about these 3 main tools so you can make the best decision for you based on your use case, because they all are somewhat different. Some are more complex, some are easier, some are more expensive. So based on kind of what your priorities are, if you want to save money versus if you want something really reliable and easy to use, you're going to reach for a different one of these approaches. So let's start with Zapier. Zapier has been around for probably a decade. I've been using it for about 10 years. And it's been used to build really simple workflows. Now, the strength of Zapier, and credit to Nicholas Boucher for posting this. So Zapier is going to be the most expensive because it's the easiest to use, it's been around for a long time, and it's reliable. Now, the big difference between these 3, they all have cloud versions that you can access, meaning it's hosted on their servers. They're in charge of keeping those automations running. And the cloud versions, you pay them a monthly fee. The unique thing about N8N is they have a self-hosted version where you don't have monthly fees. You just have to pay the monthly fee to the server that you're hosting on. So back to Zapier, it's going to be the most expensive, so about $20 per month per 750 tasks. It is definitely the most expensive. Pricing structures on all 3 of these can get a little bit complicated, but I still pay $130 per month just to use Zapier. And the reason that I'm still paying Zapier, even though I have kind of free N8N for life, is because of this. They have the most integrations by far. Over 7,000 apps have native integrations with Zapier. I lied, it's now more than 8,000. So the real power of AI automation comes because you can link a bunch of stuff together. But if they don't have a native integration, then it makes it really hard to link that software, and sometimes impossible. That's why depending on your software stack, you might need Zapier as well as one of the other solutions, which is why I still use it. So although it is the most expensive, they have the most integrations. So it's important to know what your software stack is and if they have native integrations with Make or N8N before deciding on what to use. Zapier is designed for absolute beginners. In fact, even the complex parts where you'll get stuck in these other applications will be much easier in Zapier because they've built in like AI assistants into the Zapier workflows to help you get unstuck. They also have the best and searchable task log. So if you have really important automations and you're worried about them failing, well, in Zapier, you can actually search that task log and go and replay it. So for important things like billing, as you're just getting started and you want to automate your admin tasks, if you use Zapier, you can easily search through those failed runs and you can replay them and diagnose it. So here's an automation that I've built in Zapier. If I come into Zap Runs, see on the left-hand side, I can see all success, so I can filter by whether it was successful or not. I can search within the Zap Run data. So if I'm looking for a specific record, maybe an email or a name, I can search all of these runs and then replay it or use it as test data, making Zapier really easy to navigate through issues. As you can see, the user interface is also much more friendly. You've got colors, it's bubbly, it's really clean. That's not going to be the case for something like N8N, which it looks a little bit more developer-y. Now the trend here is going to be the easier it's going to be for beginners, the less flexible that application's going to be. So in theory, there's nothing that I can build in N8N that I can't build in Zapier. But because of how flexible N8N is, I'm able to do it differently. I'm able to cut out steps. I'm able to add my own code. Whereas Zapier, because it's simpler, it's a little bit more rigid and there's less options for you, which can be great if you're a beginner trying to get up and running really quickly, automate some admin tasks, connect to your tech stack, and just get going in a safe way. Zapier is working on some other interesting features. They've got agents, canvas, chatbots, interfaces, tables that all look promising. I've tried a couple of them, but to be honest, we really only use the Zaps here. What I really do like is how easy it is to categorize everything into folders and search through these folders. So here's kind of what the Zapier interface looks like. If I want to create a new Zap, I'll just go to Create, New Zap, and then every automation platform here essentially works the same way. You'll have a trigger event, and you'll have some downstream actions that happen after that trigger. We've also got this AI Copilot where you can tell it what kind of automation you want to build, and Zapier will help you build it. And to be honest, if you want to use something like this, like an AI Copilot, Zapier is probably going to be your best option. So you'll just come in here, select a trigger. Again, we have the biggest database of tools and softwares that are natively integrated here. So if you're just trying to get up and running with the tech stack you already have, this is going to be the fastest way to do it. So you'll select a trigger. I also like how you can pin not only the softwares that you're choosing. So if I want to choose the app, you can see I've pinned things here, but you can pin events too. So if you're using the same triggers and actions a lot in Zapier, you can pin them to the top so they're easier to find. So you'll just run through, set that up, and then you can set up your action. So when new spreadsheet row is detected, do this action in Jotform. And all of the platforms essentially work this way, triggers and actions. Zapier, as I said, it's limited because it's easier to use for beginners. There's only one trigger here that you can use inside of this canvas. Whereas in N8N, I have 4 different triggers inside of this one workflow, which becomes really valuable once you start building more complex automations. All right, now let's talk about Make.com a little bit. This is the one that I learned after Zapier because it was a little bit more flexible, a lot more affordable. You get 12 months for free, which is an amazing reason to come on Make.com. It's got less native integrations than Zapier, but more native integrations than N8N. It's slightly more flexible than Zapier and less flexible than N8N. So let's see what Nick here has to say about Make. So Make has connections to about 1,500 applications. Again, see if it connects to your current software stack. According to Make, they have over 2,500 integrations. I've been using Make for years as well. It is a very intuitive tool, less intuitive than Zapier, and more intuitive than N8N. So for that reason, I almost never build on Make.com anymore. It's either Zapier because they have my native integration or N8N because it's more flexible and free. But if you want that 12 months free to get up and running with something that's relatively simple to use, Make.com is a good option. You can get that 12 months for free inside of my deal vault here. And then let's log into my Make.com so you can see what the interface actually looks like. I still have a lot of my automations built and running in here because they've been here honestly for years. So here's an example of a really simple workflow that's built in Make.com where you want to automate something really simple. This just watches my emails for specific subject lines or people, and when it sees it, it creates a row in Google Sheets. This is what the interface looks like. It's a little bit cleaner than N8N, but I don't like it quite as much as Zapier. It's a little bit more flexible. So what do I mean by that? So when I'm building inside of make.com, we've got our trigger, we've got our actions, we've got lots of filters and stuff that we can do along the way. As you can see here on the right, we've got routers, iterators, all the same stuff that we have in Zapier and N8N that you'll see across all of these platforms. The difference is if I want to build inside of make.com and I want to create a filter here, I can actually start to manipulate the code inside of these filters. So for a date, for example, I can do the timestamp now, and then you can start to, it manipulates the code for you, but it uses functions that aren't as intuitive as Zapier. Zapier, you don't ever have to do this or try and figure it out. It just helps you figure it out. Whereas in make.com, you kind of have to do some trial and error and problem solve as you're trying to get certain things accomplished. You can also build really complex workflows inside of make.com that look like this, and it doesn't cost you nearly as many credits as it would in Zapier. If I were to build this in Zapier, I would not be able to run it very frequently because of the cost. But these are all native integrations inside of N8N. It's got good go high level, it's got routers where I can decide which path something takes, native integrations to Appify and ChatGPT. Most of the tools that you'll need to use, you'll be able to integrate cleanly inside of make.com. Now they've also launched AI agents. I have not used them inside of make.com because now I use N8N, but that is something that's now available if you definitely want to use agents, and we'll talk more about what agents are in just a second. All right, so that's make.com. Now let's talk about N8N. This is the one that most advanced people are using nowadays. It's the one that I am now using primarily to build automations, and they kind of invented agentic workflows. So a couple really cool things about N8N that I think makes it stand out from Make and from Zapier. One is the self-hosted version. So I run a lot of automations, and I reach my credit limit on Zapier and Make.com every year. So I'm trying to move everything slowly to N8N to save me money and to consolidate everything in one platform. And I'll show you a really simple way to get self-hosted N8N later on in this video. Now, one of the problems with N8N is their limitation on how many native applications that they have. So if you want to come in and come to n8n.io/integrations, you'll be able to search for the integrations that you will need and if they have it available to you. If not, you'll have to do something called an API request, which we'll talk about in just a second. Now let's talk about pricing briefly. I actually don't know too much about their cloud pricing, and I don't know anyone that uses the cloud version. Almost everybody I know uses the community version because it does essentially the same thing, but you don't have to pay monthly for it. You just pay for your own server costs, and then you can run unlimited automations. So as you can see, well, as we're in here, server.leadgenj.com, that's actually my N8N self-hosted version. It's hosted on my own domain, my own website. I've got my own logins to it, and I don't have to pay a monthly fee for N8N. I still don't know why they did this, and I'm expecting that it won't last forever, but until then, I recommend that you definitely do this. It works unbelievably well, and you don't hit any price limits. Now, a couple differences here and limitations. You have unlimited users that you can add inside of the cloud version, and you'll also run into some other random limitations. For example, I can't make people an admin inside of my N8N, and I am responsible for making sure that my server doesn't go down. And if it went down, a lot of automations would go down with it, and that would be a huge issue. Now, if you want to get started with N8N, I do have a discount link in my tool vault. This is different than my deal vault. It's all going to be linked down below, and you'll be able to access N8N and some other cool deals from here as well. And guys, if you want help setting up your self-hosted N8N, we do that for free for our new members inside of the AI Automation Insiders. I'm not gonna walk through how to set it up in this video, or probably at all, because you only have to do it one time and then you're done. So it's really not worth me teaching, and it's not worth you learning. You can hire someone on Fiverr or find someone to do it for you, or we can do it for you. All right, now let me show you the N8N interface. Here's all of my workflows in N8N. I'm gonna go ahead and create workflow just to show you what it looks like. And just like other platforms, you'll have triggers. What you'll see different in N8N is more flexibility. It's not just an app trigger. I can trigger manually, I can trigger on a schedule, I can trigger on webhook, and I can also trigger on forms and chats that are hosted inside of N8N, which is very cool and different from Zapier and Make. So if I trigger on a form submission, it actually creates a form link that I can use and give to my team to interact with. And we actually use this trigger really frequently. That way I don't have to go and make a Google form or go and make a Jot form or a GHL form every time I want to trigger an automation. You can just do it all from within here. And same thing with chat. If I want to build a chatbot for a specific use case, I can just add another trigger, which is one of the cool things about N8N is because I can add multiple triggers within the same workflow, and I can trigger on a chat message. And now I get a link for that chat. that I can either share that link or I can embed that chat. Now I don't have to bring other softwares in for forms or for chats. So N8N solves a lot of problems here. And I can have multiple of these triggers trigger the same action. So for example, if I want to plug these into an AI agent here, this is an AI agent, which we're going to talk about more in detail later. And I can have both of these triggers run to the same workflow. And there's other interesting things that I can do inside of N8N that I can't do inside of Make or inside of Zapier, such as a human in the loop step. So if I want to wait for a human approval on something, I can actually send an email and wait for that email to get clicked before it proceeds. And this is a workflow we used to do all the time, but you had to make complex workflows and multiple different automations to be able to facilitate that. Now we can do it simply using this N8N human in the loop trigger. Now, I really don't want this video to turn into a software tutorial for N8N. I'm going to be showing you a lot of the concepts and strategies that I use within the tool. But if you really want to learn how to master this tool, you need to be subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you can go into my free community to learn step by step how to use each of these different functions and tools and modules and triggers. So if you do decide that you want to learn this stuff and you want to go with N8N and really master AI automation, then you should consider what other softwares that you want to use inside of your business, because it's now going to have an impact. Because every time you want to build an automation, you're going to need to communicate with that software. So if it has a native integration, so I'm going to go into add, we're going to add action in an app. These are the native integrations available inside of N8N. If yours isn't there, then you're going to need to do an API call. And we're going to talk about API calls, but essentially it's a more complex way to interact with the platform. So as an example, maybe instead of Asana, you're using Monday as your project management tool. Well, Monday has a native integration. Here's all the things that you can do with it. But maybe you're using a different tool that's not on here for project management. Well, instead of doing action in an app, you're actually going to have to do an HTTP request. So this is an API call that you're going to have to make to that app to take certain actions. And this is where you're going to get stuck a lot. So if you're deciding you want to go all in on AI automation, you should decide what you want your tech stack to be. Everybody needs a CRM. Everybody needs a project management tool. Everybody needs somewhere to store knowledge. You'll need a social media management tool. There's a lot of different softwares that you can pick from that you're going to be interacting with every day. You should make sure that they either have a native integration or they have a good API. And if you're looking for some good recommendations, you can actually filter in here by category and see what tools you could pick that I'm actually using that have good integrations. You can come into my deal vault and actually see which ones are recommended. Most of these you'll be able to interact with easily through either a native integration or API. Now, if this isn't your first video about AI automation, you've probably heard about AI agents and why they're so cool and why they're the future. Well, now let's break down the difference between a traditional automation workflow and an agentic workflow. And this graphic actually helps explain the difference a little bit. A workflow essentially follows a predictable linear path from A to Z. And it follows a hard-coded set of rules. So if this happens, do that. If this exists, do that. And it doesn't really have the ability to adapt or reason or decision make during the course of that workflow. So here's a workflow that you could build in Zapier or Make, and it'll essentially work the same way. When this happens, this webhook is triggered. It does this, it gets the file, it does this API call, and then it searches the spreadsheet. Now, this is an if statement. So if I come in here, if this is not true, then go this way. If this is true, go this way. And then it does it again here. There's no reasoning. If this exists, go that way. If that exists, go that way. It's a hard-coded set of rules that follows a predictable path. It starts here and it ends here. There is no reasoning, there is no decision making. Now let me show you an example of an agentic workflow. This is my inbox assistant, and this is an AI agent that decides what to do with an incoming email. So the workflow starts just like any other workflow with a trigger and comes linearly until it gets here. Once it gets to this AI agent, the agent is able to reason and think and operate in a circular way, not from A to Z. Now, because of that, because it thinks circularly and it interacts with knowledge bases and tools to try and get to a conclusion, it's able to solve complex problems. And by definition, it also is able to have access to tools and resources and able to give a certain result. I'm going to go ahead and run this whole workflow right now so you can see what it looks like in progress. I'm going to unpin this and execute this workflow, and it's going to find a recent email and decide what to do with it. Now, for the purposes of this example, I'm actually going to modify it a little bit, and I'm going to skip these filter steps, and now let's execute the workflow again. Now it's triggering this AI agent. The agent is powered by another AI model. It's now checking through a knowledge base that I'm going to be showing you how to build later to make a decision. And as you can see, it went back and forth, until it was able to give me an output. Using that output, it actually went and decided which category that email belonged in and went along one of these routes. Now, I could have also given it access to multiple Gmail tools to be able to actually do all of this without the switcher. Now, if I wanted to, instead of having it give me just a specific category and running the switcher here, I could have just given it access to all of these Gmail tools down here and had it do all of this using the agentic workflow. And these are the things you're going to have to decide how you want to build your automations when it comes your time. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it back to how it used to be, and we can continue. And don't worry, if that excites you, we're going to get way deeper into AI agents later on in this training. Now, for those of you that might want to build and deploy your own AI agent for your own use cases because you're excited about it and you want one of these for yourself, well, I actually built my own, and you can do the same thing using Claude. Claude is one of the top AI models right now, and it is technically an AI agent because it can reason through, it can make decisions, and it has access to tools and knowledge. So these are all the tools that my Claude has access to. It's got access to my Drive, my Gmail, my Calendar, my Asana. Through Zapier, it's got access to everything that's integrated in Zapier. Notion, Stripe, PayPal. I can use this to make invoices, book meetings, everything that my EA used to do. So I'm going to switch this over to Claude Opus 4, which is its reasoning model, and say, hey, book a meeting with Madison for today at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for 30 minutes. Use Zapier MCP tool. Now I'm going to send this to the Claude agent. And by the way, this isn't made in N8N. This isn't complex. You can set this up yourself in 5 to 10 minutes. And a step-by-step walkthrough is actually available inside of my AI Automation Insiders if you really want to set this up. But essentially now it's reasoning through my request. So it has a question. I'll need her email address. So it asked me for the email. I gave it the email. Now it's reasoning through my request. As you can see, it's deciding what tools to use. It's thinking, and now it's accessing my Google Calendar through Zapier to actually execute the action. It needs me to allow use, so I'm going to go ahead and say always allow. So essentially the benefit of agents is that they're able to reason through problems to get it to a certain action and utilize tools to get that done. All right, so if you're excited about agents, let me walk you through setting up one of these agents. So let's go ahead and delete some of the stuff here. I'm going to make a really simple agentic workflow where someone chats with this agent and the agent is able to come up with a response to that chat. This is essentially me building a chatbot in 2 minutes. So when chat is initiated, I'm going to do a hosted chat. I'll make it publicly available, sure. A lot of stuff you can do to custom style this chat. So if you can see, this is my chatbot that I built for my team. And here's the publicly available URL where they can access this chatbot. And as you can see, I've styled it and designed it for my use cases. I could also embed this thing and it would look great. LGJ, big brain. And this has access to all of my Notion documents, and it has access to memory, so it can remember my conversations. All right, so let's set up this AI agent here. Let's open it up and see what options that we have. The source of the prompt, in this case, is going to be the chat input, so what I said in that first step. If you wanted to use it for something else, like the example I showed you earlier, you can define what the prompt is going to be. Typically some kind of input from the trigger. For now, I'm going to leave that as chat node. You can require a specific output format. So if it's outputting like Markdown and a bunch of weird format, you can just have it output in plain text. I'm not going to go through that in depth right now, just know that that's available to you. I also always like to add a system message. You are a helpful assistant for a knowledge base and chatbot. Normally I would go a lot deeper in the system message, but we're just trying to get this thing up and running. Now every agent needs a few things. It needs an AI that's going to power it, a large language model. So coming into chat model, the most common one that you're going to probably use is OpenAI. And then you can choose which model that you want to attach to it. And we're going to be going deeper on which models to use when we're learning about AI. Just know that you can choose from here which models power it, and you can give some of the normal options that you would give when using AI in an automation. So the one thing I like to do is turn that sampling temperature down to like 0.3. That means it's going to give a more concrete answer. You can also set timeout, max retries, and a lot of other stuff here, but we won't go too deep into all of that. So once you've assigned a chat model, you want to give it some memory. Especially as a chatbot, you want it to remember the last message that somebody sent for that chat. In order to do that, you need to give it some sort of memory. So you can store it in N8N as a simple memory, or you can store it as Postgres chat memory. And we'll talk about this more in depth when we get to knowledge bases, but that's all I have to do is boom, now it's got memory. Now it remembers the last 5 interactions this agent has had. Lastly, you want to give it access to tools. So one tool I might want to give it is a knowledge base, especially as a chat. Maybe this is going to be accessing my team documents. I'm going to give it access to this Supabase vector store. A vector store is a fancy term for knowledge base that we're going to be talking about a little bit deeper. Retrieve documents as tool for AI agent. So this is actually going to go into my vector store knowledge base and find information. Get info from my documents. Then you can choose what table, limit how many documents to intake. I'm going to add a re-ranker in here, which actually helps make sure that I get the best possible result. And we'll go a little bit deeper on some of these other options when we get to knowledge bases. So now it's got access to my Supabase vector store. You want to tell the AI agent, so tool, Supabase vector store for accessing knowledge base of company. Then as you can see, it wants tools for these too. So for re-ranker, right now it uses Cohere. This is the only option if you want to re-rank results. And then for embeddings, this is how the information is interacted with inside of the vector store. You typically want to use OpenAI, and we use embedding 3 small. Just generally that works pretty well. So let's go ahead and chat with this thing and see what happens. What is the best tool for cold email? So it's received the chat, it's logging it in its memory. OpenAI is powering this whole thing. It's accessing the knowledge base. And as you can see, it's working kind of circularly. It's going through, it's reasoning, it's re-ranking. All of these things have been activated. And now it gives us a result. The best tool for cold email automation mentioned is Instantly AI. It's described as the best-in-class system for cold email automation. So it went through all of that to give the right answer. And this is a really good example for something that I set up in 2 seconds. Even with bad prompts, even without a lot of care, because it's smart, because we gave it access to everything it needs to be smart, it's able to give us the correct answer. And cool thing about N8N is now I'm coming in here and I can see kind of what it found, and I can see every step that it went through to get to certain outcomes, so that if it got to the wrong outcome, I can come diagnose it and fix it. I'm going to go ahead and pin that data so that we can keep testing. Now, if I want to get the result of this chat, I just want to respond to webhook at the end of this. And as you'll notice, that response came right into my chat, and just like that, we've built an AI agent. That's essentially how they work, and they are unbelievably valuable for multiple different types of use cases that we're going to go through as we go through this entire training. I just wanted to show you what it does, how it works, and the difference between an agent and A to Z workflow. So now hopefully you have a pretty good grasp of the difference between a workflow and an agentic workflow, AI agents versus automations, and how they interact and work together. Now let me show you how to shortcut a lot of your building and a lot of your problems. Now what I'm about to show you can be a little bit dangerous to teach. The reason for it is I don't want you relying on AI and I don't want you relying on templates to start building automations, because the truth is it only gets you about halfway there. But right now I'm going to show you how to import other people's automations and then manipulate them to make them your own. And I'm also going to show you how to work through problems using AI, because AI is really good at coding. And all this essentially is code. So sometimes you're going to be looking at an issue or something fails, and you're going to be like, I don't know what to do with that code or that error. I'm going to show you how to plug it into AI and have it just tell you what to do. All right, so templates. All of this is just code. Everything that I just built can essentially be copy and pasted. I can copy this whole thing, paste it here. Even though it looks like I'm pasting a node, I'm actually not. I'm just pasting code. In fact, let me come into this chat. That's what I actually just copied. This is all code. This is the code that I just copied to my clipboard. It wasn't this node, it was this code. And I can paste that code into AI and interact with it. The other thing that I can do is take that code from somewhere else and import it into my N8N. So let's go to the N8N website and come into some templates. Great thing about N8N is they've got one of the best template libraries, and there's people giving away free templates and thousands of templates wherever you look. It's one of the best lead magnets nowadays. I want to caution you against using them and really want to encourage you to build your own stuff. So if I were to import a template from here, it's going to take longer for me to edit their template to make it my own than it would for me to just go and build it. And I'd learn way more from just building it. So what you can do here is search for your use case. Maybe you want to build something to do with comments. You can see what they've already built. AI YouTube Analytics Agent, Comment Analyzer. So you can see that somebody's built and submitted this template. And you can come in and see how it works. Now, what's great about this is you can see how people think when they're building their automations. Let's go ahead and open this up. You can see exactly how this works, kind of where they're starting, what their thought process was as they were building this automation. And if you want to use it, you can actually click Use for free. You can copy the template. I actually like to download the template. I just click that import button, and it's going to go ahead and let me sync my own applications here, because you're going to need to change your applications. And then it's going to go ahead and import it for me. Now their template, their automation is inside of my application. And this is really powerful for a couple of reasons. One, they've already solved some of the problems that you might need to solve as well, such as preparing this comments data. This is code that they figured out to help get the comment data into a usable format. Now, there's a lot of ways to accomplish the same goals. So in this case, they're using Google's free API to get the comments from YouTube. If this were me, I would probably scrape it using something like Apify, which I'll be showing you later. A lot of different tactics to achieve the same result. So what are these templates great for? They're great for getting ideas for workflows that you're trying to accomplish. So you can come in here and type in use cases that you're trying to do. You can even filter through different use cases, documents, ops, marketing, see if somebody's already built something that you need to build. Chances are they have. You can import them directly, read through some of these stickers and how it works. Great thing about N8N is I can add these in 2 seconds using Control-Shift and start to adjust this sticker to give information to either myself or somebody else. So I can see how this whole thing works and operates, and can save me potentially a lot of time. Now here's the problem with using these templates. I do like to work with my YouTube comments. I just don't do this with them. And I definitely don't want to send emails with all these comment data. And I don't like to use Google Sheets to store this type of data. I like to use Airtable. So I'm gonna need to change just about half of this entire automation, which again, would probably take me longer than doing it myself now that I've mastered these topics. So what you should do is learn how to build this stuff yourself first. And then you're not even gonna need these templates once you understand the different tools, how to access them, and how to accomplish different goals. And by the way, guys, if you do want access to any of my templates that I share to my community, they're gonna be available inside of the AI Automation Insiders. All right, so what if you hit an issue like this? You're building an automation, you get an error, and that error has code in it, and you don't really know what to do with that code. Well, there's really great AI solutions that are already built for you to help work through those problems before you have to go to your team and make a Loom video and get somebody to come in and help. You should try and be able to troubleshoot these things yourself. Now, the best way that I found to do it, especially for beginners, is to use an assistant like this one. This is a free GPT, this N8N assistant. I actually use this specific one all the time. Now, like I said, everything that you're building in here is just code. So if I wanted to give this N8N assistant in ChatGPT access to my entire automation, I can just do this. I can hit these 3 dots and I can download this, and it's going to download it as a JSON file. I can then put that JSON file in here, say, what's wrong with this automation? And it's going to read through all of that code, and it's going to be able to give me actionable insights about it. I can also copy and paste the issues that are happening. For example, I can either copy the code with the issue, or I can just take a screenshot of this thing and I can let ChatGPT decipher that screenshot and figure out what's wrong. Please help me fix this error. I'm gonna give it the screenshot, and then it's going to go through the text in that screenshot and figure out what's wrong. And just like that, it actually gives me the answer so that I can fix it myself. Now, you might be seeing something here that's scaring you. You see JavaScript and you're like, I thought you said you didn't need to know how to code, Jay. Well, there's a couple things that you will need to know how to do, and that is understand some basic JavaScript. So as you're in N8N, you'll see it presented to you in a couple of ways. We've got the simple way, the schema. This is taking the JSON and making it really pretty. We've got it in a table format, and we've got the actual code that's coming through. Again, all of this is just code made easy. So if I want to copy this, I'm going to debug this one in my editor. I can interact with this in one of 3 ways: schema, table, JSON. I'm usually using schema just because it's pretty, but you should be able to do it with any of these other ways. When I want to create a workflow, I'm dragging the simple thing, but it's actually dragging in the code. Now, this can get confusing, but once you learn the basics of this, it actually makes it really easy to manipulate data in interesting ways. So for example, this if step only proceeds if the email does not exist. So instead of figuring out complicated ways to achieve that goal, I can just come in here and say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And I'm gonna go into this ChatGPT. I'm going to say, edit this code so that if the value does not exist, then output does not exist. And it knows I'm in N8N, and it's able to reason through that. And it gives me the code. I don't need to know how to code. All I have to do is copy and paste this thing. I'm just gonna paste it into here. And just like that, it does exist, so it gives me the result. So all I have to do is paste that into N8N, and it gives me the result. I don't have to learn how to code. All I need to know how to do is get the answers that I need from AI and helper tools that already exist. The other thing that you can do to get help instead of just interacting with one of these GPTs is actually go to something called Perplexity. And we'll talk more about this when we get to AI and how to learn AI. But Perplexity is essentially a large language model that searches across social media, searches across search engines to find you the best possible answers. And a lot of times it'll bring in a lot of different resources to get that done. So I'm in N8N and I can't get it to format my Google Doc from Markdown. What do I do? Chances are, if you're trying to problem solve for something, somebody else has encountered that same error and come up with the solution. So what I want to do here is also give Perplexity access to social media sources so it can search through Reddit for answers as well. So let's go ahead and let's see what Perplexity comes up with. It's searching through all of these different sources to come up with specific recommendations. And this is actually the exact recommendation that I use. So it gives me the endpoint, it gives me the workflow setup. This is actually the exact workaround that I use. So it did a perfect job. So if you're trying to solve for a problem, you can come to Perplexity, you can come to this ChatGPT that really understands N8N, or you can go to other templates where people are trying to solve for a similar issue. Now, if this didn't give you enough context, you can typically go through the sources to see where it got information from, so you can dig deeper inside of that source. These are the things that I do every single time I get stuck before I go to my team with the Loom video. And the more of this you're able to problem solve yourself, now you've got your team focused on only the hardest, most complicated issues. And of course, the other thing you can do is just ask us inside of the community. I'm stuck on this, how do I get through this? And we will help you. All right, now I want to talk just briefly about something a little bit tedious. And this is probably where you're going to get stuck a bunch, but it's worth mentioning because this is going to be the hardest part about building automations. And we already kind of touched on this earlier, and that's native integrations versus APIs. Let me show you something inside of N8N that's probably going to change the way that you think about this. All right, so here's the difference between native integrations and APIs, and why you should really learn how to use APIs even if there is native integrations. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do something in an app. Let's use an app that I already use, like ActiveCampaign. Well, these are the options that I have natively inside of ActiveCampaign. I can do account actions, I can do connection actions, contact, deals. I don't really see anything with emails or campaigns anywhere. So I'm a little bit limited in what I can actually do. Create an account, sure. So I'm not just restricted to the softwares that I can connect natively, but I'm also restricted by the actions within that software that they give me access to. Now, if I want to do something within my ActiveCampaign, but they don't let me do it within these native actions, how do I even know if I can do it? How do I know if it's possible? Well, you're going to want to check the API documentation. Most of these softwares, especially the big ones, will have an up-to-date public API. So we're going to go to ActiveCampaign, public API, and it's usually going to look something like developers.thesoftware or API.thesoftware. So let's come into this first one, API overview. It's probably not going to be it because it's activecampaign.com/API. I really want the API docs. So let's go to developers.activecampaign.com. Let's come into the API. Here we go. This is what API documentation usually looks like. All of these are the different actions that I can take using their API. And I'm able to access all of these things and do all of these things as long as I know how to interact with this software via their API. So let's say I want to do something within campaigns. I can list all campaigns, create a shareable campaign template, edit a campaign, create a campaign, duplicate a campaign. These are all things that I can do now inside of ActiveCampaign that I couldn't do natively. Now, this isn't just useful for softwares that they might have a native connection that you want to do something else with. Now I can interact with softwares that don't have any native connections inside of N8N. So let's delete ActiveCampaign because I need to do something else. I want to do an HTTP request, which is that API call to ActiveCampaign. And I'm just going to walk through a simple one really quickly. Let's say I want to create a campaign. We're going to see a couple different things here. We're going to see whether it's post, get, put. We're going to have the example requests. We're going to have the API token. I'm just going to put API in for now. And we're going to have some required fields. So if I wanted to set up this API call, one thing that I can do is copy this C URL. Let's go ahead and copy that, bring that back into N8N, and I'm going to import C URL, and that's going to make it as easy as possible. It's just going to bring in all of these details. And you'll see in the documentation, it was post, is set to post. This is the URL that we're calling. Because remember, API is just communication, so we're calling this URL. We've got the headers that we're sending, usually an API token, and how we're sending the data. So I would replace this with my API token from ActiveCampaign. Now what this is missing is that required data. So for example, can split content, false. I need to send those two things that it wanted me to send, the name and the type. So let's say campaign name, test, type, single. I don't know what those different types are. And if you wanted to know, maybe you wanted to do a resend campaign or an A/B test campaign, there might be different options for you that you can investigate here. But now I'm able to copy that and import the correct CURL. And it'll give me all of the correct fields that I'll just have to go in and change. So let's import that CURL again. Awesome. Now, in this case, it was actually really easy to do. Once I put in that API token, I'm going to be able to interact with this. I guarantee it will work. But sometimes you won't have the benefit of using those CURLs. It's going to be a little bit more complex. So let's do a Hyros API call. So we're going to go to HTTP request, and I'm going to look up the Hyros API documentation. Sometimes you have to search for a little bit, API documents, and here we are. This is what they look like. Here's all the different things that I can do on the left. So let's say I want to do this get call and retrieve leads from my Hyros account. In order to make this API call, let's go ahead and drag it over here. It's going to be get. I want to grab this URL. This is the information that I need to send. I'm going to put this into the API call here. And you want to replace this with the actual values or delete them. But just be careful because sometimes they're going to be required. And sometimes it can be tough to know what's required and what's not. If I try to send it like this, even if I replace the data, it wouldn't work, because I need to authenticate it in some way. It needs my API key. So here, it actually wants me to send it in the header like this, in this specific format. So I would need to send header, API key, and then I would put my key right there. And then I would make that API call, and it would typically work. Another cool thing about N8N is if I want to do an HTTP request, they actually have a lot of predefined credentials in here with a lot of applications that you can interact with that aren't native applications. So instead of bringing in my API key every time, I can just use the ActiveCampaign API with my already linked account. All right, so that's a little bit about making API calls. This is how you interact with software where you don't have native integrations, and how you interact with software where they don't have the correct action within that software available to you natively. The better that you get at making these API calls, the more you're going to be able to do with AI automation. And this is a common area where people get stuck because you're talking between multiple different softwares and they need everything in a very specific format and structure. So the more practice that you get, the easier this is going to be for you. But it is a very helpful skill. And if you're using N8N as opposed to Zapier, it's going to be a skill that you're going to need to develop much faster than others. The next thing I want to talk to you about is webhooks. So whereas the API call follows a specific format and structure and it has my API key for that software, webhooks do not. Webhooks are just links that have data attached to them. So let me show you what a webhook is and how they function. Now, webhooks can be used to either trigger an automation or at the end of an automation to send information out of that automation. So here is a webhook. I'm going to open up this trigger step. Now, N8N, you've got the test webhook and you've got the production URL. The production URL is what you're going to use once the automation is switched to active. The test URL is what you're going to use before that time. So this is really just a link. So for the purposes of testing, let's go ahead and add another trigger with a webhook. So on webhook call, this is going to be a post call, which means I'm sending information. And here's that test URL. Now, I'm going to open up another tab. It's a good way to explain how webhooks work. And now I've got that test URL in my browser. I'm going to add a couple pieces of information to this. Now, to add information to the back of a URL, I'm going to do a question mark, which is what starts sending that information at the end of the URL. Name equals J, and email equals j@gmail.com. Now, once I click browse, it's actually going to trigger that webhook and send that information. Now, let's go ahead and listen for a test event from that URL. So right now it's listening. Now we are going to search that URL. And this is a good example of the complexity. This webhook is not registered for GET requests. So it wants this as a GET request. So we're going to come back in and we're going to switch this to GET. Now, what you could also do if you want to get a little bit more advanced, and this is why N8N is more flexible, I could actually come into settings and allow multiple methods. So instead of just get and post and you're not sure what method to send, I could just enable all of the methods. Now let's listen for that test event again and send that information one more time. Okay, message workflow has started. And just like that, it's captured that information, name and email. And as you can see, it captured it in the get option. Now, what if I wanted to send that information out at the end of a workflow? Well, imagine this is the end of a workflow. And I want to make another webhook request. And now this is where I'm posting that information to. Well, I can use respond to webhook. And now it's actually going to send that information from either the first incoming item, all incoming items, or I can do it myself. I can respond to the text body and literally just send it the information that I want to. I don't typically use respond to webhook because if it's at the end of an automation, you're not typically sending out a webhook. but it's possible. And this is really useful for catching information from other softwares. And a lot of the main tools out there will have some sort of action where when their thing is done, it sends out a webhook, and all you have to do is catch that webhook. It throws the ball, you got to catch the ball. Okay, that's as deep as I really want to go on APIs and webhooks for the sake of this module. I know it can get a little bit confusing and daunting. Just know that you're probably going to get stuck when doing API calls, but you should learn how to start doing them. The better you get at them, the more stuff that you're going to be able to do. Now, by the end of this, I really want you to expand your mind and think about what are the possibilities that you can accomplish with AI automation. What are the tools in your tool belt that you can use to replace somebody's job, to automate a task, to build and deploy an offer? And everything that I'm teaching you here, making API calls, using webhooks, some of the stuff I'm going to be showing you about scraping and choosing large language models, these are all concepts that all come together to form AI automation and let you build essentially whatever that you want. Now, for in-depth tutorials on how to use N8N start to finish, all of the triggers, all of the flows and formats, all of the different actions and API calls, all of that is available for you for free inside of the AI Automation Insiders. It's going to be linked down below. You have to get in there. That way you can learn the nuance and also get help when you get stuck. Now, next, I'm going to be talking to you about AI. This next session is going to be a lot more fun. We're going to be talking about large language models, how to use this to do creative work, how to use this to do copywriting, and how to plug it inside of your automations to absolutely supercharge them, and how to take AI from ChatGPT.com or Grok.com into your automations to really unlock the most powerful change in business that I've seen in my entire career. Now, just one final note about working with Zapier and N8N and some of these software applications is that not every software that you're using will have an open API or be easy to use. For example, right now, I use School for my online communities. So if you go to School and you try and get inside of my AI Automation Insiders, that's in the School platform. Now, if you try and search, School API docs, it doesn't exist. So you can't interact with them via API. The only way to do it is through their native Zapier integration. So when somebody joins my community, I have to start it in Zapier and then shoot the information as a webhook off to N8N to actually finish the automation. And this works really well, but it does require me to have a Zapier account. And this is just one example where it's helpful to work inside of Zapier because they have the most native integration and they make it the easiest to accomplish certain things. Remember, sometimes even if it's possible to do multiple API calls and get to the same conclusion, a lot of times it's not worth your effort and your energy. You can just shoot it over to Zapier and get whatever you want done. Now let's move on to probably my favorite topic, and this is probably where you're going to have the most fun, and that's large language models, or AI in broad. So in this part of the training, we're going to be running through some of the different models, how to think about them, when to use which ones, how I use them in my day-to-day workflow. We're going to be talking about using them both inside of their native applications and bringing them inside of your automations and the best way to do that. But there's a reason AI automation wasn't incredibly popular until about a year and a half ago. And that's because we didn't have these tools to bring inside of our automations to really unlock a whole different level of what we're able to achieve. So a couple important things to know about these models and how to think about them is that they're always changing. New ones are coming on the market. One of them's better at copywriting now, another one's better at copywriting a week from now. They're always trying to keep up and they're adding tools, they're adding resources. So anything that I tell you right now as to which one is the best is probably going to be outdated in 2 weeks. So instead of me doing that, I'm going to teach you how to always know which one is the best for which use case and how to stay up to date on all of that information. Now, for our purposes right now, let's talk about some of the main ones that I use in my day-to-day workflow and the ones that I typically bring inside of my automations to use every day. And that's Claude, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok, and now Google as well. Now, first I want to make the distinction about using these applications inside of their native apps versus bringing them inside of the automations. So what do I mean by that? Let's actually open up one of my browsers, and as you can see, I've got ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, all pinned here, and actually pay for each of these tools individually. So the way you're probably used to using AI is opening up ChatGPT.com or maybe in the app and just asking it some questions here, maybe even giving it access to some of these tools to do a little bit more in-depth work. This, again, video is not going to be an in-depth walkthrough of these different AI models and how to use them, but I'll just give some brief notes on each one for right now as I go through them. So ChatGPT I'm typically reaching for everyday use. If I need to open it up, ask it a question, have a conversation, get it to understand a complicated file structure like a .vtt file that's used for subtitles, ChatGPT will generally be able to handle that. They've got access to a lot of different tools too, so this can create images for me. I can upload images to it, and it's really good at understanding the text in that image. So here's a good example of a recent chat I just had with it. I uploaded a couple pictures of my brand guide, which is in a PDF format that they couldn't get the text out of. ChatGPT was able to go through these images and turn it into a text-based brand guide. Now you should also note in the top left here, ChatGPT has a lot of different models that you can access. Some are better for certain use cases, some are better for others. And here they tell you what they're good for. Now when you're bringing this inside of your automations, you're not going to know which models to choose or what's good for what. So I'm going to show you how to conquer that. Just know when I'm in the application, chatgpt.com, it's almost always using 4.0. And I'm using it for very general use cases. When you don't know what to use, this is a pretty good one to reach for. Now let's talk about one that I use very frequently. In fact, I showed you how to use this one a little bit earlier in its standalone kind of desktop application where I use it for agentic features. Now in the browser, it can also do a lot of the same stuff. It's got access to all of my different applications. They all do deep research now. If you pay for it, you get access to extended thinking. Claude essentially has two models, which makes it really easy to choose. They've got Sonnet and they've got Opus. Right now it's on Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. By the time you're watching this, it could be 5 or 6. Quick things to note, Sonnet really good for everyday stuff and copywriting. Opus is really good for reasoning, complex tasks, and challenges. I'm typically using Sonnet. Now, just like ChatGPT, where you can create GPTs that are trained on different knowledge and use cases, if you're new to GPTs, these are individual little models that you can spin up and give access to knowledge bases, upload documents, give prompts so they can behave in a certain way. So anytime I want to write a contract, it's already trained on the stuff that it needs to know for writing contracts for me, my business structure, where I'm located, laws in Florida, so that if I ask it to write a contract for a new 1099, it already has the info to go ahead and do that. Well, Claude has a similar thing. It's called projects. So if you come into the left-hand side, you can train each of these projects with different information and prompts so that you can just use these when you're interacting with this AI model. Now, Claude also has something really cool called artifacts. Now, you may have noticed my slide deck here is actually created with Claude, made with Claude. I basically gave it my script and my outline of the video and told it to make a presentation for me. And this presentation is actually an artifact. It can do websites. It can do specific HTML format. All of these are different artifacts that Claude has access to. So you can also vibe code with Claude because of these artifacts. So anytime you need to design something, or if you want to create a quick application or a quiz, you can do all of that within Claude using these artifacts, which is a really helpful tool for like outputting something that you're actually going to use. But most importantly about Claude, it's the best at copywriting. If you're trying to write articles, if you're trying to write ad copy or anything for marketing or landing pages, this is going to be the one you should reach for in most cases, at least for now. Again, by the time you're watching this, Grok may have overtaken it. What it's not good at is handling files. So if I upload big files to this or different types of file formats, it's not going to know what to do with it in a lot of cases. Massively underrated and free is Grok right now. Grok 3 is free. You can get Grok 4 and upgrade and pay for it, and apparently that is the best AI model by far. But I found Grok 3 to be actually unbelievably good. It's good at handling files, going through the entire file before it gives you an output. You can put it on think mode, deep search mode. All of it is fully free, and it does an amazing job. It's also really affordable if you want to bring it inside of your automations. I find myself reaching for Grok when I have big data sets to work off of. So I want to upload my entire transcript for this video and have Grok find good timestamps that would be shorts or create timestamps for a longer YouTube video. Grok is going to be the best at that because it actually reads the whole document and takes it all into account for the output. Next, Perplexity. This is the best at doing up-to-date searches on the internet. It searches online articles, it searches through even social media posts like Reddit posts and YouTube to find you the best information, even TikTok. So anytime I'm trying to find something that may have changed in the last week, maybe it's a software update, maybe it's a conversation about something new going on in the media or the news, Perplexity is generally where I'm going to go. Because whereas these all have internet access and can go search for it, Perplexity does that before every single response, and it searches everything. So this is another one that I reach for, again, anytime I need up-to-date information about something, and I can also bring this one inside of automations to use as well. Now there's lots of different AI models always coming out, and a lot of them are really impressive. There's DeepSeek, there's Google's Gemini, and I don't want you to get distracted by all these AI models. You should find the one that's best for specific use cases and that just be the default one that you go to. They all essentially accomplish the same thing. They just vaguely outperform their competition in different use cases. So by understanding what I teach you here, you're not going to be distracted by all these different AI models. You're going to know exactly which ones to use for what. Okay, so that's using them inside of the applications, perplexity.ai, grok.com. But what if I want to plug this into one of my workflows and use it, not here where I'm like talking back and forth to it, but what if I want to leverage the power of these AI models inside of an N8N workflow? Well, they make it really easy to do that, and it unlocks a lot of different capabilities. Copywriting, decision-making. Now you're able to incorporate all of the power of these AI models inside of your workflows to automate just about everything. So what does that look like? Well, let's open up our little example automation. We've got this chat that's triggering it. We've got this AI agent. Now, you don't need to make an AI agent every time that you want to use AI. If I wanted to do something else instead of that AI agent, let's go ahead and disconnect it and move all of this over here. Instead, I just want to add a ChatGPT step. So we can come into AI here and see what kind of options that we have. We've got OpenAI, AI agent. We've got AI templates if you want to see what other stuff that you can do. Information extractor. I'm typically only using AI agent or OpenAI. Now the big difference between using an OpenAI step, say I just want to message a model, just do a really simple message a model with OpenAI, you can actually still give it access to some tools. And using an AI agent that's powered by that same AI is that the AI agent is typically a little bit more capable. So the big question that you're gonna probably ask yourself is, okay, when should I use an AI agent versus a generic module or node inside of a workflow? And the answer is I rarely use these nodes inside of a workflow. I can come in here and I can call Claude in a step, Anthropic chat model. So the answer is I rarely use AI as a step in here unless it's an AI agent. And you'll find yourself probably doing the same thing. Because why not give your AI prompt and your node superpowers? Why not give it access to a knowledge base and memory and tools? Because without those things, it's just this, and you're not really missing anything by using the AI agent without the tools and without the memory. Now you might also notice in here that if I try and add Grok, it doesn't actually add it as a module. It wants to add it as a chat model for an AI agent. Same thing if I try and add Claude. It adds it as a chat model for an AI agent and not an actual node, which makes it really difficult to interact with these different models outside of an AI agent. So for that reason, for the purposes of this training and your future building automations, you're mostly going to be using AI agents and you're going to power them by these different models. So for that reason, I'm not going to use OpenAI. I'm just going to go ahead and connect to that AI agent. I'm going to hit this broom button to clean up this automation. And now we can talk about the most important question in this training, which is the difference between interacting with AI here versus interacting with AI here. And it is extremely different. Because if you've ever worked with ChatGPT inside of the platform, it's probably not going to give you the result that you want right away. Write an article about lead gen J. If you just tell it to do this, it's probably not going to be exactly what you want on the first shot. It's going to use weird language, it's going to use incorrect or outdated information, and you're going to have to go through and constantly correct it, which is great because if you're inside of ChatGPT, you can give it feedback. You could tell it not to output any introduction or outro. You can tell it to output in plain text or markdown. You can tell it to adjust the information, and you can keep refining it inside of the chat back and forth with the context until it gets it right. Well, you don't have that ability when you're bringing AI into your automations. Instead, all you have is one shot. You have a prompt, and if that prompt doesn't give you the right output most of the time, if not every time, it's not going to be very effective and it's not going to work. And this is why you need to get really, really good at prompt engineering. Just to recap the differences here, when you're interacting inside of the app, you can refine the results, you can talk back and forth, and it's much more forgiving because the prompt that you use isn't going to determine the final output because you can go back and forth. Versus when you're using AI inside of your automations, you don't get to go back and forth. There's the trigger, there's the agent who's coming up with an output, and then you get the output. So in order to adjust that, you need to keep triggering it, keep adjusting the prompt, and keep waiting for the final output. So prompts are much more critical, and testing those prompts is even more critical. So let's go ahead and delete this whole thing, and we're going to start from scratch, bringing AI into our automation. When chat is received, We're going to go ahead and do an AI agent. I'm going to define below, which is what you're doing when it doesn't start by chat. We're going to execute previous nodes, say write an article about lead gen J. And we're going to go ahead and pin that output so we can just keep trying it over and over again. Now let's open up this agent. And now that we have this prompt, you've typically got two things to work with. You've got a user message and prompt. In almost all cases, this is going to be whatever information that you're bringing into the automation. So now the AI is just getting this input, write an article about lead gen J. I'm going to add an option and add a system message. You're going to want to do this for every single time you interact with AI inside of n8n. You want a user message and a system message. The user message is generally going to consist of the variable information, which is the information that's going to change from run A, run B, run C. This is how you're going to get different and unique outputs for each one. And then the system message is the prompt. It's the information that you're telling it to work off of in order to get to a certain result. So we're going to spend a little bit of time, just a little bit, on prompt engineering towards the end of this module. But just know that the system message is kind of the bulk of the prompt that this is going to work off of to get your result. Now, a pretty cool thing about using AI agents, like I said, they're much more capable. There's a lot more that you can do. You can require a specific output format. If you're trying to write an article right now, maybe for my PR firm, we need a title for the article, we need a subtitle, we need the article itself, and maybe the author name. So we're going to require a specific output format. And as you can see on the bottom here, we've got a lot of different stuff we can give access to. So once I check this box, it's going to open up output parser. I use structured output parser, and this gives me a nice example. Now, again, I can just bring this into ChatGPT and ask it to help. I'm just going to go title, author, and this is the benefit of kind of learning how JSON works is now I don't have to go to AI each time I need help. Body, article body, and markdown, author name. So now I've got valid JSON. As you can see, it's all highlighted the right colors, and it's going to know to structure the output like this, which gives me a lot more freedom to not be super strict in my prompt. Now, typically, your prompt should be good enough where you don't need this, but this is just an extra layer of protection. And now you can add an additional layer of protection to auto-fix the format using AI as well. So if it formats in something that it doesn't recognize, now I can have ChatGPT go through the output and actually restructure it how we want. Because remember, you can't just keep going back and forth with this AI and asking it to output in a different format or a different structure. You need to be as clear and definitive as possible so that there is no wiggle room for error. Because in a world of automation, once you have 100 of these things running on autopilot, any issues with any of the workflows or runs can be a huge headache for you. So the better that you get at this and accounting for any potential error, the easier this is going to be for you to scale and to build. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is assign a chat model. Now, I'm going to show you a secret here that's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. Instead of going through all of these and putting your payment methods in and making API keys, and you can't even do it inside of Claude, you have to go to Anthropic console. And a lot of times you can't even get the API key from the app. You have to go to a different site, which is like OpenAI's developer tools, or inside of here where I have to get API keys from console.anthropic.com and then put in different billing. There's a way to shortcut all of that, and it's a tool called OpenRouter. Now, a couple of things that OpenRouter is going to be really useful for you. One, for picking the right model. Now, to know which models are the best for copywriting or for reasoning, all of that is done and ranked inside of OpenRouter. So before you're choosing, you can come into models, come into rankings, see which ones are the most used this week. So Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, and then you can come all the way down and see which one is best for certain categories. So for example, let's do marketing. Looks like Google 2.5 Flash is most used for marketing. Now that might be because it's being used with like images and videos. So let's see what other categories we have here. Marketing, SEO, programming, Claude Sonnet seems to be the best. So you can come in here and like see what other people are doing and what's best for your category. The other great thing about using OpenRouter is instead of signing up for Anthropic and Grok and Perplexity and bringing in API keys from all of those, you can actually just sign up here and create an OpenRouter API key. And then instead of linking those individual models, you can come in to your AI agent and link the OpenRouter chat model. And from here, you can choose from any of the models that OpenRouter has listed, which is pretty much all of them. And then the API keys, just go through them. They actually handle that for you. So if you pay, $100 in Claude API credits, you pay OpenRouter, OpenRouter covers those APIs. So now if I want to use Claude Sonnet 4, which is the most up-to-date one, it's one I typically use for copywriting, I can just select that one. And now it's going to use Claude Sonnet without me having to bring in my Claude API keys. All of these AI options are a little bit more advanced. The one that I really want to point to here is sampling temperature. This is how creative you want your AI model to be. I'll say for copywriting, you can leave it around 0.7. For decision making, I would leave it like 0.1. You don't want it to be creative. You want it to be decisive. Now, the other thing you need to keep in mind when you're choosing an AI model is context windows. So if your prompt is 4,000 characters long, you have a really long prompt, not every AI model can handle that. So you're going to want to pick models depending on what your use case is. So say I want this model to write an article for me. I'm going to want to use Claude because Claude is the best for writing an article. But what if I want it to actually make a decision for me? I want it to reason. Well, I want to pick the model that's best and cheapest for reasoning. So if I'm curious about which one to use, I can come to Perplexity and I can say, which AI model is best and cheapest for reasoning. And it'll try and find the most up-to-date and tell me. And I actually really like its answers. And there's a couple things that you need to think about when you're picking the right AI model for your use case: cost and effectiveness. So OpenAI O4 Mini is a really good all-around model and can be used effectively for reasoning. The best part is it's so cheap, $1 per million token inputs. Versus if you really want a complex reasoning model, you can use O3, which is the most capable, but it's $10 per 1 million token inputs. So if I wanted to use this AI agent for reasoning, I could go to ChatGPT 4.0 latest. I could do GPT 4.1, which I know is a really good new reasoning model, or 4.1 mini if I wanted to save some money. If you're ever concerned about costs, you can always come into these models and filter by, context length that they can handle, prompt pricing, and try and figure out which one's going to be the best for your specific use case. And then choose the AI that you want to use based on what you find here. All right, so that's a quick hack that should really help you along your journey, bringing AI into the automations. And if you ever need to switch or update your models, because maybe GPT-5 just came out and a new one is recommended, you can just come into OpenRouter and simply update it to the most recent model. All right, so now that we've picked the model, we've got the structured output, let's go ahead and give it a little bit of instruction and see how it works. Your helpful assistant, write a PR article about the person from the input, max 500 words, output in this format, title, subtitle, author name, and then give it some rules, write in the tone of New York Times, never make up facts or information. Okay, so really simple prompts. Just want to show you how it works. We're going to go a little bit deeper into prompt engineering in just a second. But now since we've got everything that we need, we've got the input message, we've got a system message, we've got output formatting in with an auto fixer. It doesn't need any context memory. So I could add, memory to this to remember the previous chats. But this is just writing articles. It doesn't really need any context memory. And it's not really pulling from any vector store. I don't need a knowledge base for this. I could give it access to some other tools to help write, but I really don't think it needs it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. And it errored. And this is actually a really good example of getting through it. So it was just missing a comment here. If this is not valid JSON and code, it's not going to run. So I just fixed it, and now we're going to go ahead and run it again. And now it's running. As you can see on the bottom here, it's executing. It's using Claude Sonnet from OpenRouter to power the AI agent, working through the prompt. And now it's structuring it in the way that I asked it to. And now it's got an output for me. So let's go see what that output is. We've got a title, we've got a subtitle, we've got an author. I didn't say who the author was, so it did a fine job there. And obviously this is much longer. If I want to see the full thing, I can just switch it over to JSON. And I think I said max 500 words. So this is actually a pretty good example because it didn't have enough information to write about me. So I would need to provide it with information to write factual stuff about Lead Gen J, because I don't think it knows who Lead Gen JU is and it doesn't want to guess. So this is the type of result that you're going to get in a workflow if it doesn't have the correct prompts and you haven't tested it correctly. So if I were building this from scratch right now, I would be developing this prompt, testing this prompt over and over again with different inputs until I got a result that I was happy with almost every single time. And just one last thing about context windows. So say I wanted to write an article that's 2,000 words long. And before we had these models that could handle big context windows, I could be feeding this thing a lot of information in the system message, the prompt. I could have a whole step here that's doing research about me, feeding thousands of characters in as research, and then asking it to write thousands more words as an article. Now, if I don't have a big enough context window, it's not going to be able to do that. So I need to know the context window of the platform that I'm using, Claude Sonnet 4. And if I come to add option, I can actually see the maximum number of tokens that I want to use here. And if you don't add this as an option, it's typically going to use the max. But just make sure that the model you're using is able to output enough words. And if you're not getting outputs that are enough words, then it's probably because your context window isn't big enough. So you should choose a model that is able to handle that bigger context window. Now, I don't usually touch any of these other ones. It'll typically default you to the best choice for most use cases. So for that reason, I would not worry about touching any of these. All right, now let's have some fun, and we're going to talk about how to use AI to generate graphics, videos, voices, and how to bring all of that stuff inside of our automations as well. Now, I want to preface this with, I don't really use it like this because I think the content that's generated by AI right now is kind of trash, with a couple exceptions. If you're doing like voicemails, maybe you want to do voicemail drops, individual voicemails for every lead, you can do that using 11 Labs and bring that inside of N8N. But in general, if you're making videos or you're making graphics, you want to be able to have that back and forth with the AI to see the output that you're getting. You don't just want to trust it to make something that looks and sounds good and post it or do something with it. So a couple tools I'm going to talk about and a couple of use cases for AI for creative that I'm excited about in the future. So there's a tool called photoai.com. Now you can do this in replicate.com, which is a little bit more complex, but this is essentially one that I've trained on my face by uploading a bunch of images to it. And it's the easiest to do. So if you want to generate AI images with your face, which you can use on thumbnails, ads, we use this all the time. This is an ad we recently just put out for 4th of July. This is not actually me. This is an AI generated photo. All the women are AI generated. And my team uses this for a lot of stuff, especially in my content. But I found this really helpful when you want to scale yourself as a personal brand. Be able to create whatever you want with your face and your body. Now, photoai.com is so far the best and easiest at doing this, especially because you can like select styles, set preferences, and it makes prompting it and getting results really quick and really easy. And you can use these across multiple different marketing strategies. Now, for those of you that are a little bit more advanced, this is called Replicate. This is where you can interact with a ton of different creative models for graphic design, logos, photos, videos, audio. They're all in here, and you can interact with them via code and via API. So you can bring these inside of your workflows to get a lot more done. But as usual, the more flexible that it is, being able to bring these inside of N8N and prompt them with automated workflows, you're typically not going to get the best results. So just like in Photo AI, where it's just much easier to use, this is like using ChatGPT inside of ChatGPT. You can actually train these models outside of the platform, where you can upload lots of different images of yourself and then interact with it via code, just like this, where you can send the code to this model and it's going to give you an output. Now, what this is really great for is similar to OpenRouter, where you'll go to OpenRouter to find which models are best for what. This is great for getting different ideas. So you can come into models. Let's go into Explore all models, and see which ones are featured. Here I can interact with Google VO3 without having to deal with like going to Google and trying to figure that out. VO3 Fast. You could see what other people are using. So coming down here to official models, this one's being used to edit images. This one's used to turn your audio into professional quality animations. So if you want to bring these creative models inside of your automations or just interact with them in here without having to like go sign up for their websites and go figure out how to use VO3, you can just come into replicate.com, add your billing info here, and deal with it all in this spot. So let's go ahead and try and create something in VO3. I think I have some money in here, so this should work. Now I've gone ahead and uploaded an old thumbnail image of mine, and I told it to make it look like I was in the Matrix with code raining down behind me and bullets flying through the air. It's generating right now, but a couple things I wanted to show you about using this model. Looks like it doesn't like the bullets. It's still pretty expensive, and you don't really want to be trusting the automation to just use this willy-nilly because it's going to be wasting your money. So I just removed where I said bullets, and let's try it again. We're going to run and see what it gives me. Again, very expensive. We don't really want to be using this inside of our automations. But if you want to interact with these different models, this is a really good place to do it because it saves you a lot of hassle with going to sign up for all of these different API keys and plans at different softwares. Here, it's all under one roof. So we can come back to this later. And then let me just show you a really simple way to start creating creative using AI. So ChatGPT is really good at image generation now. In fact, most of the main models do have an image generation mode. So you can come in and just say image, you can choose the style that you want, and just tell it what you want. And ChatGPT is going to create those images for you. And now it's good enough where you can kind of go back and forth, get logo ideas, get background ideas, But the thing with creative generation is you really want to go back and forth with it because it's almost never going to give you the right result on the first try. But what if you wanted to turn yourself into an AI avatar that you can tell what to say, you can clone your voice. So all you have to do is give it a script and now it will talk in your voice with your face and your mouth moving. Well, that's easier to do than ever using a tool called HeyGen. They've been the best for years, so I'm comfortable saying that they're probably going to be the best when you're watching this. All of these are different avatars that I've trained that I can basically make say whatever I want. So using this tool, I can come in, I can create video, I can do it in portrait, I can choose from avatars that I've created, or I can use one of their avatars. So we're gonna use me as an avatar, and then we're gonna choose a voice. So I can either use her voice on me, which obviously we don't want to do, or I can change out that voice to my saved voice. Now this is something that I've cloned using 11 Labs, which is the best for voice cloning. And now I can essentially write a script and have this actor say exactly what I want it to say. And I can actually bring this really easily into N8N and start to create these videos on autopilot. And what we get is essentially a result that looks like this. This is just from my avatar talking. This isn't actually me. So it's unbelievably accurate and unbelievably good. But you do need to make the training video. You need to clone your voice inside of 11 Labs. Actually, they have voice cloners now too, but 11 Labs is still the best. And then you can create content with your face, your voice, all on autopilot. And the newest thing they can do is you can actually just upload an image and have that image start talking. So this was just a photo that I did with a photographer, and it turned it into a talking photo with my voice, and it's actually really good. Now, I don't actually use this content anymore. We tried it. It doesn't perform as well. As long as people can tell that it's AI, and I think Instagram and YouTube know that it's AI, it just tends not to perform as well. People like effort, like me making this video for hours and hours. You know how much effort this took me, so you feel like it's worth your time to watch. Versus when you turn on an AI video. Didn't take anyone's effort, so why should you give your time to that person? But great to know this is out there, and definitely recommend you guys coming in here and playing with this stuff. And I've also seen creators be really successful with this. So even though I'm not doing it and I'm not using it, it doesn't mean that it's not gonna work for you. And the last one I'll show you is 11 Labs. All the platforms that I'm showing you are the best in class. It doesn't mean they're the cheapest. But when you're using AI for creative, you really wanna be using the best. So 11 Labs is the best for voice cloning and using really realistic voices. So say you want to add voicemail drops into one of your workflows in your CRM or your cold email outreach strategy. You can do that at scale using 11 Labs, and it's actually really affordable. And you can actually clone your voice in about 5 minutes. You can just upload audio of you talking or clone it in real time. It'll just take you through some prompts, you'll say some stuff, and then it'll have a clone of your voice in minutes. Then you can bring this voice into N8N, you can bring it into HeyGen, and you can use that voice for whatever you want. And there's also native applications for 11 Labs where you can convert text to speech, and I can actually add this into my workflows really easily. So maybe in this step, I write a voicemail. I take in information and I write a custom voicemail to a person. Then in the next step, I come into 11 Labs and I actually convert text to speech. I'm not signed in here because I'm not using it for this, but you can actually choose your voice, choose your text, and it'll give you an MP3 file that you can send to somebody as a voicemail drop. Now, HeyGen doesn't have a native integration with N8N. However, they do have API documents that you can use that are pretty good. And you're gonna get really good at using these API documentation. So we're gonna come into API reference, and here's all the things that we can do with HeyGen inside of N8N. All right, so there it is. It came up with the video. Obviously, this needs some fine tuning. It's not quite there yet, but not bad. And here is the image that ChatGPT created for me. So my goal here was really just to open your mind as to what's possible in the realm of creative AI usage and how you can potentially use it inside of your automations. I also want to caution you against just coming up with hundreds or thousands of spammy AI generated videos and photos and posting them automatically. A lot of people do that, and it's really easy to do. But in my opinion, as a content creator, it is ruining the internet, and I don't want you to do that. I want you to take the effort and time to put your love into each thing that you post. And now I want you to strap in for a second, because we're going to be chatting about one of the hardest and most important things about getting AI automation right, and that's the prompt. We barely spent any time talking about the prompt in here, because honestly, it could be a whole masterclass in and of itself. So in this video, I just want to go through some basics and let you know that a lot of times the value inside of like copying my template isn't the template itself. It's not the structure. It's the prompts. Without good prompts, you don't get good outputs. And you need to get really good at prompt writing. And I'm going to show you how to do that in this section, and also how to use AI to make your prompts better so that you get better outputs almost every time. Because if you try and just run this thing on autopilot and the prompt isn't good, you might get a good result, 1 out of 3 times. But when you're doing this inside of an automation, it needs to be 3 out of 3 times. And the way to do that is to account for any possible thing that could go wrong with the inputs and the outputs inside of the prompt. So here's a couple tips that I think are going to help. Every prompt should include these things. The who. So who is the tool pretending to be? It's a teacher, a scientist, a dancer, a tennis coach. This puts the AI into a frame of mind and a way of thinking for the out. So let's do this as we go. So who? Who is this writing for? So if I'm building the prompt here, I'm going to start from scratch. We've got the input that can stay as is. You are a journalist for Forbes. Now it's in the frame of mind as a journalist. It's writing an article, and this is how it's going to think. What? What do you want it to do? Should it be informal, chatty, professional? And then the why, the purpose of the task, and what it's trying to achieve. I actually like to do the why next. So here's my essential structure. You are a journalist for Forbes. Your goal, this is the why, is to write a viral article for Forbes about the person mentioned in the input. The article should be fully SEO optimized and discuss the subject in a positive manner. The more details you can give to this prompt, the better, as long as it's not overlapping information. So that's the why. Now the what. Start by writing a viral clickbait title with the person's name in the title. The article should be about something that person is doing or is famous for. You may make up quotes about the person. The article should you should then write a subtitle that is SEO optimized around that person's name that helps get clicks. And then I also like to give it rules. So under the what, rules, output format, given, write in the tone and style of a Forbes journalist, never use words or phrases used by AI. Give it as many rules as possible to optimize your output. Article should be 1,000 words in length. Article body should be in plain text format. Just give it as much as you possibly can to work off of. And what I'm actually going to do to get a better result here is give it a little bit better context in this chat input. So instead of unpinning and doing again, I can actually come in here and edit the pinned input. So write an article about Jay Feldman, aka Lead Gen J, about how AI is taking over lead generation. So a little bit more context to give it a little bit of a better output. So now we've got who the AI is pretending to be, a journalist for Forbes, the goal of the output. We've got some rules, and we've got some of what we want it to do. I would still make this much stronger. So I'm going to say, I'm actually going to grab this, and I'm going to bring it into Claude. So let's open up my Claude here and say, improve this prompt. And just use AI at your disposal to continue to improve your prompt or write your prompt. You can just give it what you want the agent to do, and it'll actually output the prompt for you. And just like that, it gave me an improved prompt. I'm going to go ahead and copy that in here. And now let's go ahead and run it. So while that's running, kind of the core concepts that I really want you to take away from this is that the prompt is by far the most important thing when it comes to building AI agents. With a bad prompt, you get a bad output. With a bad prompt, it's not going to use the tools correctly. It's not going to give you the output and the structure that you want. So really focus on getting better at prompt engineering and spend as much time or more on the prompt as you do building the actual workflow. If you do that, I promise you're going to have much better results. Now, just like that, we've got outputs that are actually good. So we're going to come into this JSON. We've got the title, the subtitle, the author, and the full body of the article in plain text format. Now we have something that's finally usable. And just some final examples on how to really supercharge your prompt. They've got some good tips here. So show the AI what you want the response to look like. The more examples that you can give it, the better. So if I wanted it to write, viral clickbait titles, I could give it examples of 5 to 10 viral clickbait titles. Now, obviously, if I wanted to output a 1,000 word article, I'm not going to give it examples of 1,000 word articles. That's crazy. Prompt stacking. So this is good advice and kind of what I mentioned earlier. Too many directions can confuse the AI. So we can break the prompt into separate parts. That way the AI can use results from previous prompts to generate new tasks. Now, if you're not getting great results or something's off, this is actually a really great thing that you can do, which is have it explain its reasoning. So if I wanted it to do that, what I would do is come into the AI agent. This is especially important for decision-making tasks. Explain your reasoning for the title selection as a separate output. And then in my output parser, I'll just add an additional line here for reasoning, title reasoning. And now in addition to the article, it's also going to output its reasoning for choosing that title. That way, if it's choosing bad titles, now I know what to go change in the prompt. Now, if you really want to go nuts, down here, ask for multiple versions. Obviously, this doesn't work so well if it's 1,000 word articles, but if it's versions of a caption or different versions of a domain idea, you can actually have it output, 5 to 10 different options and then have an additional step that's good at reasoning, actually choose the best option. So now that you understand how to use automation and AI and combine them into a single platform, here's some of the amazing things that you're able to do. So this is a personal assistant AI agent that I built inside of N8N. Now the great thing about this is I can interact with it from Telegram, from my phone, from my computer, and all I have to do is send it a quick message to this LGJ EA bot, and it will do whatever I want. And from that message, an AI agent will decipher it and reason through it and decide what action to take. That way, through this one Telegram bot, I'm able to give it all of these different tools and capabilities. And by the way, I'm able to do it via sending it an image or uploading a transcript, and it will analyze it and transcribe it and send that through the assistant. Now, here's some of the things that this assistant can now do. It's got a calendar agent where it can book meetings directly on my calendar. It can interact with my calendar to tell me what's upcoming, what's free. A research agent to go and look into something or a person, an inbox AI to interact with my emails and move things, reply to things. It's got access to calculators, it's got access to my contact database and my projects. And I can continue to add tools to this, like travel or whatever I decide to add to it. And then it responds to me via Telegram. So here's kind of how it works. What is my calendar availability tomorrow? So I just initiated that message to this AI agent. And as you can see from here, it is currently running. It's processing that message that I just sent, and it's calling the correct sub-agent. All of these down here are additional workflows that it's calling, so I can add them as tools. So instead of just giving it access to a zillion different tools and having a massive prompt, now I can just have this one be the main agent who decides which tool to call, and it goes through one of these sub-automations. So let's see if that execution is done running. It is. Took that Telegram message, went to the assistant. The assistant decided that it needed to access my calendar agent, and then it got the information from the calendar and gave me that output. And then let's see what it said back to me via Telegram. Yep, boom. It's got all of my meetings and availability for tomorrow. So just like a normal EA would, this thing is able to do a lot of different stuff for me, whereas I don't even need a human to manage my calendar or my email anymore. And each of these is its own workflow that I can continue to improve on. So let's take a look at the calendar agent that it just accessed. So this is another AI agent powered by OpenAI, and it's got access to all these different calendar tools as well as date and time. So it's able to do something like this, whereas it just got the execution from that Telegram, and then it went through, get events, it did this whole thing on its own, it reasoned through it, and then gave me the correct output. So once you combine automation and AI and learn how to use the tools, you're able to do really incredible things, not just for business, but for your personal life. So if that got you excited, I can't wait to show you another superpower that you can add into this to unlock an even bigger range of possibilities and things that you can accomplish. And that is web scraping. Now, it might not sound so sexy at the surface, but once I show you what this thing has done for me, you're gonna be mind blown and you're gonna be excited to start building your own stuff. So what is web scraping? Essentially, it's the ability to go through anything on the internet, grab information, and do something with it. So some examples here, we're able to get business data like Google Maps listing, company information. We're able to scrape social media, so posts, followers, engagement. We're able to get market signals. So what are people buying? What are they subscribing to? What's new in Google News? So let me show you just what's possible with web scraping. Now, to answer your question, no. You don't need to build your own scrapers. There's much easier ways to do it and interact with it now. You're learning this at a time where scraping has never been easier and has never been more accessible. So let's go to one of my favorite websites, which is appify.com. This is essentially a site where you can rent other people's pre-built scrapers. And you can take those scrapers and either interact with them here in Appify, but of course what you're going to want to do is bring them into your automations to make them a part of your workflows. And I'm going to show you what's possible once you can do that. So the big question is, what can you scrape, or what do you need to scrape? Well, let's go to the Appify store and just see some of the scrapers that are publicly available for you to start using right now and start scraping. So you can filter based on use case. There's entire agents that are built. So instead of just using like a single scraper, you can do one that has a lot of things connected to it. So you can filter by use case, or you can search for what you're trying to accomplish. So for example, maybe you want to scrape Instagram followers. You can type in Instagram and see what sort of scrapers are available. And as you can see, there's a lot. However, of course, they're all not created equal. Some are more expensive than others. Some are developed a lot better than others. So you're going to want to look at how many people are using it, their star reviews, and sometimes you're going to want to take a look at their price. So let's type in Instagram followers because we're specific on what we want to accomplish here. As you can see, a lot of these have bad reviews, meaning it might be kind of hard to execute this. So you want to find a scraper with the best possible reviews that is able to accomplish what we want. So this one here, looks like this guy was able to kind of figure it out. It is $15 a month plus usage, but this actor might be able to do what we want it to do. Now, most of these come with a trial. So you're able to try this specific scraper for 3 days and just make sure that it works. My one caveat there is if you're going to use these trials, make sure that you cancel it when it's done, or else you're going to end up paying for that scraper. So type in what you want to accomplish. There's going to be different pricing structures. So there's rental, which is like paying them per month. You'll see a monthly fee plus usage. So let's look at some of the ones that I'm frequently using. I'm just gonna go to home. Here's my runs, my actors that I'm using every day. These are all runs that happened mostly today. This Apollo scraper is $1.20 per 1,000 leads. Super reasonable. That's what I'm paying. Now I can interact with it right here, but what I really wanna do is bring this in to my automation and have all of this automated. So I'm gonna need this JSON here. So what you should do is come into this Appify store and see what can be scraped, especially if you're trying to accomplish something in a specific use case. Maybe you want to do something for an SEO bot. You want to see, okay, I can scrape Google Maps. I can get Google Trends. So maybe every day I can see what's trending for a certain keyword. So you can come in here, you'll set your search term, you'll set your time range. Maybe I only want the past hour, the past day. You can search for multiple terms, worldwide versus United States only. The better the scraper, the more you'll be able to really fine tune this. And then every day you can know what the new Google Trends are. So based on your use case, just come in here and play around. Again, some of the stuff I'm doing, scraping websites, scraping Google results, scraping Instagram posts, scraping Apollo leads, scraping LinkedIn posts, and these are all just today. I've got scrapers running pretty much every single day or every 3 days. So the big use cases for these obviously is social media. You can get a lot of great social media ideas by scraping other people's posts and seeing what's working for them. You can extract their like counts and share counts and get all of that and filter it down into really useful data sets. So this is a Notion table that I built using one of these scrapers with an AI automation. So it scraped these people's YouTube videos, categorize them by views and likes, and now I can filter them and see, okay, which videos had the most shares. I can categorize them by channel. And then I can see, okay, that one looks like a good fit for me. Let's go ahead and open it up, see what this video is about. And then I could really easily add to this automation to come up with an additional YouTube script for myself and customize it however I want it. I've got this Reddit content ideas that's scraping the most viral topics on Reddit and coming up with AI summaries and posts that I can use. So if you're ever looking for ideas or script writing automations, this is how you do it. It's through scraping. This is an Instagram DM automation that I built using the same scraping tactic. Essentially, all I have to do is submit a form with a new Instagram profile. It runs the Appify actor, adds that profile to the sheet, and then once it's done, I actually get the results. This one found 899 people that they were following, and then it processes them and actually writes individual DMs to these people and then puts it into a spreadsheet so that my Instagram account can start automatically sending DMs, customized DMs to the people on this list. So if all this sounds like something that you're interested in learning, this is when you're going to learn how to add scraping as a tool in your tool belt to build unbelievably powerful AI automations. So now that we know what's possible with web scraping and automation, how do we actually go about getting these into our automations and start running complex automations using Appify web scrapers? Now let's go ahead and build one from scratch using a scraper. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a workflow. I'm gonna leave and save. Now there's a couple ways to initiate this, especially if you want to do this like daily. You want to see what new comments are there every single day. You could run it on a schedule to trigger every hour, every day, every few hours. And you can do that by starting with on a schedule. And then you can actually customize this using code. I won't go into that too in detail right now. You can also have Appify do it. So once you find an actor that you want to use, say that I'm scraping Instagram posts for the purposes of this automation. And this is the actor that I want to use. I came into Appify, I tested it. We're going to go ahead and scrape Hermosi's posts. We're going to get 5 posts per profile. within the last 1 day. And remember, this is not code. This is me interacting with it inside of Apify. But right now, I'm just testing it. So I'm going to go ahead and save and start. And it's going to start running and scraping data from Alex Hormozi. If you want to check the log, like this is what the code is doing. This is what the scraper is doing. Now, while it's running, I also want to mention here under storage, this is an important number. This dataset ID corresponds to the actor run and the data that you're going to be able to collect from it. So this is where the dataset ID is if you ever want to find it. And this is going to be important once you move this into your automations as well. So here we go. It's scraping. It's done. It's got the output. It's got the last 5 posts. Here's all the information that it got. This is in table format. This is in JSON format. Triggered integrations 0. And then the storage, this is that dataset ID. Okay, so we've confirmed that it works. We like the pricing structure on it. Now what we can actually do is there's 2 ways to bring this inside of our automation. We can either run the schedule inside of Apify and then have it shoot the finished info to our automation, which can sometimes be easier. It just depends if you want to change this every time. So do you want to scrape Hormozi every single day? Or do you want to change the person that you're scraping? Do you want to change the parameters of this scraper on a daily basis? If you do, then you want to trigger it from within your workflow. If you want to leave this the same and you're cool scraping the last 5 posts from Hormozi every day and getting only his most up-to-date posts, you can actually turn this into a saved task. So I'm going to click these 3 dots and I can create task. This is going to make it a saved task. So Hormozi 5. So now that I have it as a saved task inside of Apify, I can actually do this. I can come into schedules, create new. Let's say Instagram Hormozi 5 daily. Title my schedule. You can set the time zone, and then I can add the saved tasks here. And now every day it's going to run that scraper and give me a result. So I'm going to go ahead and enable that. And now every day that is going to run. But what happens with the output data? Well, let's come to that saved task and find Hormozi 5, and then come to integration. This is how we're going to get the data into N8N in the first place. So we're going to send it as a webhook. So when run succeeded, so every time this is done, Hormozi Instagram 5 finish is what we're going to call this automation. And then we need a URL to send that webhook to. So I'm going to add another trigger here. And this is just going to be waiting for this webhook on webhook call. It's going to be post because it's receiving a post webhook. I'm going to grab that test URL, bring it back, and this is where it's going to send the data to. And now it's ready to start sending data into this automation. So I'm going to go ahead and listen for a test event, and then it's going to just start monitoring that webhook. Now let's come back in and let's go ahead and start this thing. We're going to run the actor as is, and it's going to finish and give us those 5 posts. And when it's finished, it should ping this webhook with the information that we're going to need. And if you ever want to know how to set that up, make a post request too. It would say get or it'd say patch. So this just got done, and now this is the information that I received from that webhook. Now what you'll notice is I don't see any of the posts. If I come into the run, I actually see the post information. So now we actually have to get that information. So this is going to trigger once a day because we set the schedule inside of Apify. And it's going to scrape Alex Hormozi's 5 posts every day. And then it's going to send information to this webhook. Now I need to get the information from the webhook. Well, Apify now has a native integration with N8N. So we're going to go ahead and install it. This will make life a little bit easier, especially for simple functions like get dataset items. So you can run get dataset items, bring that dataset ID. That was that number that I told you about earlier. Default dataset ID. This is what we want. You can set a limit if you want one, and then execute the step. And now we're going to get the information that we want. So now we've got the specific posts, the first comment, all the information that we would get inside of that automation. And as you can see, we've got 5 items here, which is exactly what we want. So that was a really simple way to set up the scraper inside of Apify and push the finished outputs into N8N on a daily basis. Now the limitation there is I can't really control what it's scraping. Now what if I wanted to scrape Apollo, for example, and I wanted to use this Apollo scraper, but my team is giving it the Apollo URLs that it wants to scrape? Meaning they're not going to come in here and Apify every time and change the search URL. They're going to submit it through a form, most likely, and they expect it to scrape Apollo and give back the result. So if I wanted to run this one, it wouldn't be on a schedule. It would be on a form submission. So how would I do that? Well, you would build something like this. On form submission, it runs that Apollo scraper, and you would do that using the API. So let's open up this API call. We're doing a post call, and then want to figure out where to send that information. So let's go ahead to this Apollo scraper and figure out how to set this up from scratch. Once we know the structure that we like, we've tested it, it works. We've got the title, the number of leads, we want the clean output. You're just going to click JSON, and this is the structure of how you need to send information to the scraper. So let's go ahead and add another trigger. And this one is going to be on form submission. And then from there, we want to run a API call to start that scraper. So how do we know what API call to do? Well, let's come into the API on that scraper. So click API endpoints. It's this run actor that we're going to need. We need to start it. You'll also see run actor synchronously, which can be tempting. It means start it and then wait for the result. But these guys typically fail, so I'd advise you against using them. So we're going to run actor. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that endpoint. Remember, it's post. There's the endpoint. And if you're having trouble, you can always go to the API reference. And here is the CURL that we need. So we can always just copy that and put that in. So let's go ahead and copy that CURL and import it here. So what we need to send is the URL that we're interacting with. And then we need to send the authorization. This is the API key, accept content JSON. And then we paste that in the output. So let's go ahead and set that up. All right, so how do you make that API call to the actor inside of Appify? Well, it's going to need this URL, and every actor is different. You're going to get that run actor URL from here. You can go ahead and copy it and paste it into your workflow. Then you're going to need these headers, and you're going to need the JSON at the bottom. That's the most important thing. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this module completely and go ahead and bring it over here. Now, since we're changing the parameters of the scraper every time, we need to wait for it to finish scraping before we can get the dataset items. Remember, in this example, it's already done. This webhook says that the scraper is finished and the data is ready. So if we try and do the get dataset items here before the scraper has finished, this can take a long time. This run scraped 50,000 leads and it took 3 hours to do. This one scraped 1,000 leads, it took 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So in the case where you have a scraper that can take a really long time, you want to use this webhook method to trigger another automation once it's finished. So building this, you would run this Apollo scraper, and I would set up another webhook to start an automation like this once it got done. And that's essentially what I did here. This one runs the scraper. The second step waits until it's done and processes that information. However, if you're using something like a website content crawler and these runs take, less than a minute in most cases, you can actually use the run asynchronously. So if I was calling this API endpoint, I would run actor synchronously and get dataset items. If it's a really quick functioning automation, then this will generally work pretty well. So that's how to bring the scraping tools inside of your automation. You can either set them up inside of Appify to run them on a schedule if you're not going to be changing the parameters, or if you are going to be changing the parameters, you should bring it inside of your N8N to trigger the workflow like this, and then wait via webhook, or you can set it up to run and get the items like this if you have a scraper that is not taking a long time. So none of these are taking a long time. That would work really well in this case. So one technique that you're going to have to master if you're doing a lot of scraping, especially with ideas and YouTube comments and posts, is a common problem you're going to run into is duplicate information. So even if you're scraping once a day with the most recent info, you're going to have a lot of overlap, and you want to prevent that overlap. So let me show you how to do that. This is a Reddit post scraper that I had built, and let me show you what it's doing. So every day at this specific time frame, it's running the actor. It's waiting until it's done. This is a technique called polling. You shouldn't have to do this if you follow my webhook principle, but it polls, and then once it's done, it gets that data set ID, and we got 156 items here. It filters, so it only gets the ones over the last 12 hours. So the goal here is to take a lot of different data and a lot of info and only get the most relevant info. So now we've got 145 items here. We're gonna loop through these items one at a time, because if you try and send all 145 at once, whatever software you send them to is going to crash. It's not going to be able to handle all those at once. So we're going to loop over the items, and we're going to check Supabase. Now this is checking in a table that I created, Reddit posts, where I'm also putting the data once it's done, if I already processed that item or not. So as you can see here, 13 were already processed. It went back and skipped. The 132 that weren't processed went to my first agent, which is a qualifying agent. The job of this agent is to decide if that Reddit post is worth my time or not. So out of 132, 50 passed the test and 82 did not. Those 82 got added to the Supabase table so that the next time that piece of data hit this step, it wouldn't go true, it would go false. And that way we're not repeating information to my AI agents. And by the way, you can use other databasing tools to do this technique. You can use Google Sheets, you can use Airtable. I like Supabase because it's free. It's got a lot of API limits, so I can hit it with 10, 20 at a time and it won't crash. And it's just the most reliable. So after I get those 50, now it does my research agent, which is doing research into that topic. and then my copywriting agent, which is actually writing the interaction for that post. Finally, adding it to Google Sheets and to Airtable. So there's a bunch of different techniques here that are used to best process and utilize that information. And all these different techniques are the concepts you need to get familiar with so you can best utilize the data and make it practical. That way, every time this runs, you're not wasting money on API credits, you're not duplicating information. You want your data to be as usable as possible. And if I come into my Supabase, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about in the next section here, you'll be able to see exactly where all this information is being stored. They're all going into this Reddit post table. And every time it runs, it's checking against this entire database. So right now I've got almost 4,300 records in here. And this is where just storing all of my data. The data that's done, the data that it's skipping. This way I'm not repeating AI steps. So if you want to use N8N, this is called looping. This is called databasing, where you're checking if something exists in a table. If not, it proceeds. If it already exists, it skips. So let's talk about some various use cases for Appify based on what you're doing and how you can potentially use this for any business. Maybe you're writing blog articles for your website every day. What is the hottest thing that's being discussed on Reddit right now? Every day, you can scrape certain subreddits to see what the trending topic is. You can use Google News for every day, see what the trending news piece of information is, so that you can write articles for your news website or for your blog. You can scrape jobs on LinkedIn. So maybe you're applying for jobs and you want to see new jobs as soon as they hit LinkedIn. You can scrape LinkedIn jobs. You can scrape Indeed. Or maybe you're trying to generate leads. Well, you can scrape things like Crunchbase. You can scrape the yellow pages. The limit for what you can build and accomplish is really just what your imagination is. There's so much on here and so many possibilities that it's unfathomable not to come up with some really unique ways to use this to make money. Now, it's also worth mentioning, I showed you a bunch of techniques here that I use to make this data usable. At the very end of this, it's really only going to come down to what I'm actually using it for. So if it's to get ideas, I want it in a table that's really easy for me to interact with. So in this example, YouTube content ideas, I'm able to come here and filter through all these different videos and ideas really quickly and really easily. So the two softwares that I recommend for being able to do that are Airtable and Notion. I actually like Airtable a little bit better for this specific use case because it can handle a lot more data, and filtering it and sorting it and running automations off of it is actually really easy to do. Lastly, I really want to highlight this step, and this is the qualification agent. This step here makes sure that all of the data going into my table is actually relevant and useful, especially if you're polling like social media, comments, or followers. Having some step in there to control the quality of data coming through becomes really helpful in making it usable. So adding a step like this wherever possible, where you can have it determine whether it's yes, a good fit, or no, it's not, will help limit the data that you're actually taking in and using. All right, so now that we learned a little bit about scraping and how to bring that into your automations to supercharge them, let's learn about one more superpower. Whereas if you're able to learn this next part, you're gonna be able to unlock even more possibilities with your AI automation. This next thing we're gonna be talking about is knowledge basing. Now, a knowledge base, for those of you that are brand new, is a database of information that you can search to find things that you need that are relevant to what you're searching about. Some people have knowledge bases in Google Docs and Google Drive. Some people keep them in Notion. Well, I'm going to show you how to bring the knowledge base concept inside of your AI automation so that you can unlock unlimited possibilities. Now, if you already have some experience with AI models, you might notice that GPTs already kind of have a knowledge base, right? I'm going to come in and edit this GPT, and I'm able to upload knowledge to this GPT. I can put in Google Docs, Word docs, PDFs, and it will learn from that knowledge. Now, what it's actually doing is it's taking those documents and it's vectorizing them and putting them into its own GPT knowledge base, which makes it really easy and helpful for me to interact with these GPTs, because now it's working off information that makes it smarter. And you can do the same thing inside of Claude, inside of Grok, where you basically upload information where it trains the model on that piece of information. So I uploaded docs here, CSV files, PDFs, and its job is to take all that context and categorize it into a knowledge base to make it useful when I go and talk to it again. So a lot of you have probably already done this. You've interacted with AI models that work off a knowledge base. You've built a chat bot that maybe works off a knowledge base where you uploaded a PDF and now it has access to all of that information. Well, you can do that same thing inside of your automations now really easily. You just need to understand a few simple concepts. Now, the beautiful thing about interacting with the knowledge bases in Claude and ChatGPT is you don't have to worry about how it works. You just have to worry about uploading your data and then asking it questions, and it's responsible for categorizing it the right way and calling it the right way. While using N8N, it's not going to be exactly that simple. So back in the day, we used to have to build these OpenAI assistants. You'd go to platform.openai.com and you would basically set up, these are like GPTs that you can interact with in automations. And you can still do this, and it works quite well. You can create an assistant, and then you can upload files for that assistant to use. And this was really the only way to kind of train these assistants and give them context. Now we don't really do this anymore. Now we use knowledge bases inside of N8N. So what you need to know about how knowledge bases work and how it handles this information is that ChatGPT or Claude or these assistants will take all of this info that we're dumping into it, and it's going to do something called vectorizing that information. Think about vectorizing like a librarian who organizes the books, but not just by title, it's using a lot of the meaning and context in there too. So for example, in a regular search, you would say something like find documents with the word dog. Well, in a vector search, it's not just dog. It would be like find documents about pets, animals, companionship, even if it doesn't say dog. That way that information is easily searchable and findable. You're also gonna hear the term RAG thrown around a lot, especially in the AI automation world, and I want you to be literate. So what RAG is retrieval augmented generation. And this is really just a fancy word for a knowledge base where it goes and accesses information. If AI is a smart student taking an exam, instead of only using what it memorized, which is like the training data that that AI model has, it can now actually flip through the textbooks that you give it to find the relevant information before giving you an answer. This is why knowledge bases make the outputs so much better in a lot of cases. So there's a lot of ways to create and interact with knowledge bases. The one that's going to be relevant for this video and for you most likely is going to be Supabase. So you can go onto supabase.com and sign up completely for free. And this is where the knowledge base is essentially going to be hosted, and it looks like this. This is the table that's configured to be a knowledge base. So this is the one that's getting searched, and we've got the context. So as you can see, it's chunking the information into different chunks. This is each line is a different chunk. And then we've got metadata. So we're able to see, okay, file title is Lee Jin Jae cold email replies. That way when I'm searching through this knowledge base in different automations, I can use metadata to only find the relevant things in this knowledge base. And then embedding vectors. Remember when I said it vectorizes the information? I don't fully know how this system works, but it essentially uses like a three-dimensional matrix to quickly identify the best information based on these numerical values, which is still a crazy concept for me. But don't worry about it. Just know that this is what the vectors look like, and this is perfectly normal. So you're going to sign up for your free Supabase account. Go to supabase.com. Their free tier is pretty much unlimited. Now, configuring it is a little bit technical and nuanced, or you can just import the template that I'm going to give you to basically run an N8N automation once you've kind of signed into your Supabase, and it's going to configure it all for you. If you're interested in that, just join my AI Automation Insiders, and it's going to be right there in the classroom for you. So here's a little bit about regular search versus vector search. Again, you're not going to have to worry about regular search because AI vectorizes everything for you with the knowledge base setup that I'm going to be going through with you. So we're going to be using Supabase as our main knowledge base because it's free and N8N kind of prefers it. Also might be worth mentioning a tool called Cohere, which is a re-ranker. So when you call a knowledge base, it gives you X amount of results that kind of match what your query was. Well, a re-ranker will take all of those results and go through them and then re-rank them so you only get the top results, the most relevant results. So Cohere works natively inside of N8N. You just need an API key. This one is not free, but it is unbelievably affordable, and it's going to help improve the quality of your knowledge base. All right, so how do you actually set this up? Well, I essentially build all of these different methods of getting information into my knowledge base. Remember, it's two parts here. You need to get info in, and then you need to get info out. Because getting info in isn't as easy usually as just like putting a Google Doc inside of a GPT. You need it to be vectorized and stored properly so that it can be recalled correctly. So here's a couple ways that I actually get knowledge into my vector store is through a Google Sheet. So if there's a specific sheet that I want to put in there, for this one example, it's like inbox AI knowledge. This is going to get all of the rows in that sheet. Let's go ahead and see my recent executions. I'll typically just keep this in test because I'm not putting knowledge into my knowledge base in an automated way, on autopilot, on a schedule or anything like that. I'm typically doing it very intentionally. So in this case, I set this trigger for when clicking. It got all the rows in that sheet, looped over them one at a time, and then I set up this action step to actually vectorize it and put it into my knowledge base. I'm going to go ahead and copy that to editor just so you can see kind of what we did there. So here's how it's set up. It's the Supabase vector store. We're inserting documents to the table. So the one table that's configured to be a knowledge base. This is the batch size, and that's the default. And then the query name. So we want to match the documents. Now you're going to want to attach two things here. In fact, you have to. How it's going to embed. So you're going to use OpenAI's text embedding 3 small model. This is the typical one, nothing fancy here. And as you can see, it's kind of going through, and this is how it vectorizes everything. I don't worry too much about the details here, but I know that it works. And then for document, you want to use the default dataset loader. And this is where you'll configure the text splitting and you'll add the metadata. So automation, EA inbox AI trainer. Now, anytime I want to query information from that knowledge base, I'll just need to use that specific metadata. Let's look at another one that I did. So in this example, I was actually monitoring a Google Drive folder, and once a document was added to that folder, it grabbed the file from that folder, extracted the data from that file, cleaned the data from that file. So I wanted it in a specific output, no bolds, no line breaks, because remember, when you vectorize it, it needs to be in a very specific format. So we fed it all of that data. We gave it a file title and file ID. This is the metadata that I can call anytime that I want to use it. And then it put it all into that knowledge base for me. You can, of course, monitor your Notion and put your Notion documents into your knowledge base so that you can interact with it in Supabase. A lot of different ways to get your information and knowledge inside of that knowledge base. So these are all the ways that I get info into my knowledge base. This template's going to be available to you inside of my community absolutely for free. You can just go ahead and join that and import this, and you're going to be able to get all the info that you need into your knowledge base. Now, the tricky part is going to be getting that information and calling it and using it correctly. So let's go into an example here where I'm trying to call that knowledge base and get valuable information from it. So this is my email inbox AI, and I've got a whole bunch of rules that I trained it on for how to categorize things. So when you want to use that knowledge base, you want to add it as a tool, vector stores, Supabase vector store. Now, all of these are other different knowledge bases that you could use that probably work just as well. I like Supabase because it's really simple to interact with. And by the way, Postgres. For those of you who have never heard that or maybe have seen it before, Postgres is like the engine that powers Supabase. It's not really a software in and of itself. It's the database that stores and organizes the data inside of Supabase. Whereas if Postgres is the engine, then Supabase is the complete car. It's got the dashboard, it's pretty, it's usable. That's why when we go to use the memory here, and we're using Postgres chat memory, it's actually connected through Supabase. And that information is going to go here. Even though it's Postgres, this is going into Supabase. This is how the two are connected. All right, so when I'm adding this knowledge base, we're going to add Supabase vector store. You're going to give it a little bit of a description. So what it's going to use this for, use this to see what previous emails were categorized in knowledge base. Give it the table to choose from. Choose the one that's set up as a knowledge base. This is the limit for the number of outputs that you want it to work off of. So it's going to find the closest matches, and that's going to be used by the AI agent to decide the final output. So you can either leave this as 4, or if you want to use a re-ranker, you can now make this 20. And it's going to essentially bring it down to 4. If you're not using a re-ranker, I suggest 3 or 4. If you are using a re-ranker, I suggest 15 to 20. You want to include the metadata. You don't want it to just search through everything. You want it to be a targeted search. So we're going to add a metadata filter. Now, I want to go only through my inbox AI information. So if I want to know kind of how I put it in there, let's go to documents. This is definitely referring to how to handle emails from my inbox. So let's see what kind of metadata that it's using. Meta title, automation, and then the data is EA inbox AI trainer. Let's go ahead and copy that. So the name would be automation, and then the value is that there. And that way it's only going to search the documents matching that metadata within that documents table. And I'll usually leave query name on. For embedding, we're always using OpenAI's embedding 3 small. This may change later on. This is just to keep things simple. I leave all of this as default. This is for more advanced users. So now we've got the embeddings, and then the re-ranker, we're going to be using Cohere. And that's how you give AI agents access to your knowledge base so that it can search through that vector database and get the right information. Now, there are other ways to use knowledge bases without setting up Supabase and worrying about metadata. For example, this AI agent has access to all of my Notion. So instead of putting all my Notion data into Supabase and having it vectorized, this AI agent can go through all of my Notion FAQs, expert answers, to try and find the right answer. and it actually does a really good job. The issue with this is it's using Notion API credits. The AI agent might have to work harder. It's probably not vectorized in a way that's easily searchable. So if I wanted to take the time to, I could just get all of this Notion data into the Supabase, and it would probably work even better. Remember, the goal here is to give AI agents that could benefit from previous knowledge as much useful information as possible. So context from the previous chats, information from the knowledge base. It uses all of that in order to create the best possible output. So some really obvious use cases that you can deploy right away are FAQs for your customers or for your teams, like deploying chatbots on your website or chatbots for your team to use and engage with, or turn this video into a chatbot that's trained on my entire transcript that you can interact with. All of that is done really easily and free using N8N and Supabase and knowledge bases. All right, I hope that's pretty useful and clear regarding knowledge bases and what you can do with them. The biggest roadblock for you is getting set up and configured the right way in Supabase. So for that, I definitely recommend joining our AI Insiders. It's totally free. You'll get the step-by-step walkthrough and the templates to help you configure much faster and make sure that it's actually working. And if you're just looking for a quick way to get up and running, you can come into platform.openai.com, make one of these assistants with system instructions, and upload some files. And then when you're inside of any of your workflows, you can just go ahead and say AI, OpenAI, message an assistant. And this assistant has access to the files that I had given it. And this assistant already is trained and has access to all of the files from OpenAI that I have uploaded here. So that is a quick workaround if you don't feel like getting Supabase set up, but you really want to learn how to unlock the power of your AI agents using that knowledge base. And once you have that knowledge base, you can connect it to all of your AI agents. And now it has access to the collective genius of your entire company and your operations and everything. So I definitely recommend getting this set up. It's going to be worth your while down the road. By the way, I've mentioned a few of these tools already throughout this video, but Appify, you can get 30% off inside of my deal vault. You can also get access to some other crazy deals, 6 months free on Notion, all the things that you're going to need to kind of get up and running and get started to save as much money as possible or even get some stuff for free. Vault.leadgenj.com, and that's going to be available to you. Access AI software deals free inside of this community. And next, we're going to be talking about the vibe coding revolution, how to build websites, softwares, applications, all with just talking to it, with sentences, with normal language. To be quite frank, developers are screwed and they're terrified of this stuff. They have built their own demise. And I'm going to show you how to leverage these tools to build applications for yourself, for your clients, and take AI automation to a whole new level. Now let's talk about one of the hottest trends of 2025. And I realized that this was such a trend because I recently hosted my two friends. They stayed at the penthouse for a few months and they were just sitting there typing away on their computers the entire time. And what they were working on was actually building their own app. Now, granted, neither of these guys were developers. They're not even online marketers. They're barely even tech savvy. But they were sitting there just talking to this AI model, building their own applications. Now, whether they make money or not, that's to be seen. But they were building these mobile applications, these web applications by talking to these AI models. And I realized, holy crap, like if these guys who are barely in this online marketing, AI automation world are sitting here building their own applications, and this is rampant. So that's when I realized just the scope of the vibe coding revolution. It is massive. And today I want to walk you through what vibe coding is, some of the main tools, how to use it, what to use it for. The goal is to get you educated, get you literate, and start thinking about what you could possibly build. This is another massive tool that's going to be in your tool belt as an online marketer, as a business owner, because now you don't need to rely on developers anymore. In fact, I think the better that this gets, developers are more and more screwed. Because now you, who's not technical savvy at all, who has no idea how to code, can make just about anything that you want. So okay, let's jump right in, the vibe coding revolution. What is vibe coding? Well, essentially it's like talking to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Gemini, and instead of it just giving you a response or going to get information, it actually is building you things with code that would otherwise require a developer. So you tell it to build you an app, it goes and builds you an app side by side. You watch it code, and then you watch the result of that code that you can actually interact with. And this isn't just apps. These are mobile applications, web applications, websites. The presentation that you're looking at right now was built in Claude using vibe coding. So we're going to go through some of the different applications, how you can start vibe coding for free, and what this is actually useful for and how to potentially make a lot of money with it. So here you'll see some of the main tools that are popular right now for vibe coding. There's new ones popping up all the time. Now, what these softwares have to be very afraid of, and I think it's happening as we speak, is these top AI models like Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, now enabling vibe coding inside of their applications. So it's not going to be long now until Lovable and Bolt and Replit, I think, are going to be obsolete. And just to prove that and kind of show you how vibe coding works, I actually just vibe coded myself a little application inside of Claude. This is just the regular Claude. I asked it to build me an app that compares different AI models using test prompts, use minimalist style. Users should be able to connect their API keys, use only the top 5 large language models, use artifacts to show the code UX UI. So if you're not already very familiar with Claude, I'm just going to go ahead and open up a new tab. What's cool about Claude, and the other AI large language models are adding this too, is artifacts. Artifacts are like modules inside of Claude where it can take code or take other outputs and then give it to you in a useful format. For example, a website artifact, a quiz artifact, a code artifact. And by using these artifacts in Claude, it's actually able to code me an entire application. This is all of the code that it generated just from my single prompt. Now, granted, I did select Claude Opus 4.1, its most advanced reasoning and coding model, to get this done. It thought through the process, found the top large language models, figured out what it needed to create, and then it coded this entire application for me, all with a single prompt. Now, the great thing about vibe coding or interacting with AI inside of these applications is if it messes up or something's wrong with the application or the output, I can just talk to it and have it fix it. Coming over here, this is the output right now. It looks like exactly what I asked for. It's got the top 5 AI models. It's asking for my API keys. It even told me where to get my API keys. And then my test prompt here. But what if I wanted to change the color? Or what if I wanted to add an additional AI model? So can you please add Grok to this list? And let's change the color scheme to a blue gradient. So just by simply interacting with this Claude chat and telling it changes, it's actually going to think about what it needs to do. And then I'm going to come over to this coding section, and now it's drafting artifact here. So here it's editing the code that it created for me and adding new code based on the instructions that I gave it. Right now, it looks like it's changing the colors and the fonts. And just so you know, I don't know how to code. I am not a developer. I'm vaguely technical savvy when it comes to using tools and softwares, but I have no idea what it's actually doing over on the right-hand side. But what it's essentially doing is editing that code for me. See, here we go. It's doing different fonts. It's adding different colors, doing research into Grok's XAI model. It's reasoning through this entire process. Now, as you can see, it's reasoning through each step, thought process. Now I need to continue updating the CSS and adding Grok, editing the code to add Grok's API key, plotted Grok's addition to the API sections. Now remember, you don't need to know how to code in order to use this. All you need to do is know what your final product should look like and what the capabilities of these tools are. And that's really what AI is all about, removing all of the need for technical skills. So all you have to focus on is what are your capabilities, what are you trying to build, and then what are you going to do with it? And the what are you going to do with it is really the most important part that I want you to get out of this module. All right, so it looks like Claude just finished creating my application. As you can see, now I have Grok's API key where I can add that here. It changed it to a blue gradient just as I asked for, and it finished all of the code. This looks great. Here's the new code. And then I can actually publish this using Claude. Let's go ahead and publish and copy link. So it makes it a viewable public online application. So I can go ahead and copy this link. And now I can share this application for anybody to use. I can sell it. I can take the code and put it onto my own website. There's a lot that I can do with this. I can sell it. I can use it internally. I can give it to friends. I can give it as a lead magnet. And really, the sky is the limit. Whatever business that you have, think about the lead magnets that you can create, the tools, the calculators. All of this is possible now with vibe coding. Think about the niche softwares that you still pay for that maybe you could just vibe code a solution to. So just like that, I have a public URL that I can share, I can give away. So now that you know how it works, let's actually talk about some of the different tools and options out there for you to start vibe coding. So I mentioned a couple here, Lovable, Bolt, Replit. These were some of the first of its category. And I think they're quickly being replaced by internal tools like Claude, and now ChatGPT can do the same thing using Canvas. So it can actually code for you and then give you the finished product all within ChatGPT. However, you still might prefer using one of the tools that are dedicated for vibe coding. So let's walk through some of them and show you how they work. So let's start with bolt.new. Essentially the same thing. You can import designs from Figma, GitHub, and you essentially just tell it what you want it to build and it starts building for you. Now, I was actually able to get a pro plan for a whole year with bolt.new using my vault.leadgenj.com. You can just head to that website to see what kind of deals are available to you. But just like what we did in Claude, you can do the same thing in Bolt, and you're going to have a little bit better of a user experience. So let's think of an example app to build. I pay a lot of money for a tool called Plecto, which helps me visualize data from a Google spreadsheet. So let's try this. Build me a data visualization app that connects to a Google Sheet and uses AI to analyze the sheet and display sales data such as sales calls and transactions. This is for business owners. Users should be able to add a public Google Sheet and their own API key for OpenAI. So that's what I want to build, something similar to Plecto to visualize one of my spreadsheets. Now I can enhance prompt here, which I definitely recommend doing, especially if you're just getting started. We're going to go ahead and enhance prompt and let Bolt do its thing and come up with the best possible prompt. Now with a lot of these tools like Bolt, you get credits. So you really want to optimize for how many credits you're spending for each request. The better that you can get it on the first try, the less credits you'll use and the less back and forth you're going to have to do. So prompt enhance, let's go ahead and click go and watch it start building. Now Bolt is going to start thinking, start coming up with a plan to build this thing. It's got my core features, design elements, and now it's going to go ahead and start actually coding this thing and building an actual application. It's installing things because I'm not technical. I don't know exactly what it's installing. Now I'm going to let it do its thing as we talk about some of the other ones. We've got Replit here, which I don't have a subscription to, but it essentially does the same thing. In fact, all of the vibe coding tools are relatively the same. They use AI to take what you say and turn it into code. The difference is what AI model are they using, how good is it at coding, and then what are the capabilities of each, which are all relatively the same. Now the last one is lovable.dev, essentially does the same thing. It's a vibe coding application, and I've used it to build things like Trustpilot display widgets because I now pay Trustpilot like $1,500 a quarter to display my reviews, which scrapes all my Trustpilot reviews and gives me embeddable widgets. And a lot of these have really good free versions too. I believe Lovable has a really strong free version that you can start using. Yes, Lovable does have a good free version that you can start using and start building. Now, a way to get ideas for what you can build is go into GitHub or Lovable or Bolt and just come down and you can actually see what the community is building. So internal tools, website, personal, consumer app. A lot of these are things that you can either use, remix, and just get ideas for things that you can build yourself. Let's go to Replit Business Apps and see if we can get some ideas as well. Now, one thing to note here is if you're going to start vibe coding, you're going to need an account at github.com. This is the main ecosystem for coders and developers and where applications live. So for most of these vibe coding applications, you're going to want to connect your GitHub, and that's where this thing is going to be published. It's totally free. All you need to do is sign up for an account and then follow the instructions to integrate it. Now, just for fun, since ChatGPT 5 just came out, we're going to go ahead and see how it does when using the exact same prompt as bolt.new. So let's come back up to my prompt and see what it can do here. I want to see how ChatGPT does. So we're using canvas mode, which is going to give me the actual artifact and display. As you can see, ChatGPT 5 just switched over to thinking mode, and now it's planning app structure, and it's giving me the option to get a quick answer. But I don't want a quick answer. I really want it to take its time and do as good of a job as possible at building this application. And I'm curious to see what does better, ChatGPT or bolt.new. As you can see, this thing is still coding. It's writing a lot of code here. It's building an entire application. Now, all of these files that make up this application, I don't know what they mean. I'm not technical. I'm not a developer. But when I'm ready to publish this thing, it's going to get published in GitHub, and then I'm going to be able to access it. All right, so while that's working on building my app, let's talk about what vibe coding is good for and not so good for. And this is the most important part of this module. It's what can you actually build? What should you use this for? And we're my friends who are sitting in my living room, vibe coding away, wasting time and making a mistake. Well, let's talk about vibe coding in general right now with where it is and how good it is. Well, if you're like me, you're not a technical developer. You don't really know how to code or interpret the code. which really limits your capabilities in actually converting your idea into a finished product, especially if it's a really difficult or complex finished product. Now, a finished product is something that you're ready to give to customers and start using without any glitches or bugs. Because if you ever deploy a software, even if it's to your own team, the first thing you're going to notice is if everybody starts complaining because things aren't working. So for vibe coding, you're going from, okay, I have an idea and I have some idea of how it's going to work. Now let's talk to the AI models and have it start to build that thing. And typically what it's going to do really well the first time is take your idea and make it look pretty on the front end. A really good UX UI, that's user interface of that web application. But what you're going to notice is once you actually start playing with it and using it, it doesn't quite work the way that you expect it to. And that's because a lot of things have to happen from the front end to the back end actually working and then it feeding the information back to the front end. So what you're going to notice as you give it instructions for a complex application is a really pretty front end and a back end that doesn't quite work. And you have to keep playing with it or giving it to a developer to actually finish the project, add the functionality, and make it actually work the way that it should. However, that is only true for more complex ideas and complex projects, like the one that I just gave to Bolt, interpreting that Google spreadsheet using AI and displaying the data the way that it should. Chances are it's not going to do a very good job displaying the data. That's just how AI works. It's not going to be able to think and interpret the way that I would as an experienced marketer and having run sales teams. However, what it is really good for is really simple applications. Calculators, interactive quizzes, websites, presentations, and you can continuously talk to it and refine the design, refine the copy, and actually make really simple, usable modules or plugins or applications or widgets for your website that look and function really, really nicely. Now, especially when this comes to like landing page or website design, what I've been doing is just talking to Claude or another vibe coding application, giving it the copy that I already want, or have worked with Claude to refine my copy, putting it in there, and then just refining the design by talking to it. Change the font to this, make it more this color, make this section smaller, make it 3 columns. And then I give that URL that I published with Claude or Bolt over to my designer to actually refine and implement it. So it always gets you most of the way there with the front end, but then you should have a professional go in and refine it. Now that is not true for really simple applications, quizzes, widgets. So if you want to know if my friends were likely making a mistake when they were sitting there vibe coding really complex databases and applications, yeah, I think they were, because it gave them a really pretty front end, which can be very deceiving. It's like, oh my God, I've got this software and website that does what no other website does. It looks super clean, it looks great, people are going to love this. And then what you realize really quickly is that, oh crap, this does not do exactly what I want it to do. This isn't working, and that isn't working, and that isn't working. And no matter how many times that I interact with this thing, I just can't quite get it to do what I want it to do. And then you're going to have to bring a developer in to pick up where you left off with your code, which can honestly take longer or be even more expensive. So if you want to build something more complex, my recommendation is use the vibe coding to come up with the front end. This will show you the functionality, how you want the UX UI to look like, and then you can give it to a developer to finish off. Now let's pop back in to the AI and see how it actually did. So it looks like Bolt is done. It wrote a lot of code here. And as you can see, I've got all the files here. I've got all the code that it wrote. And if I come over to preview, I can actually see what this thing will look like. Now in this case, the preview is not showing. So I'm gonna go ahead and ask Bolt. My preview is not showing anything. And then it's actually gonna go ahead and troubleshoot this for me and try and figure out why. I see the issue. It's not showing because there are several problems with the current setup. Let me fix it. So the great thing is if there's an error, if there's an issue, you can just talk back and forth with these vibe coding applications and it will fix it for you in real time. But again, the power of the vibe coding apps and the difference between Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini and Bolt and Lovable is how good they are at getting it right the first time and not having those back-end functionality issues. All right, looks like Bolt fixed itself, and now I've got a preview that looks usable. Email address and password, let's go ahead and give it an email and password. It's usually not gonna have like a fully built out back-end yet, but here is the application that it built. So we've got data sources, AI analysis, active connections, last analysis. Now, as you can see, a lot of this data is like demo data. So there's not actually 2 data sources connected. There is nothing connected. So if I come over to data sources, nothing happens. AI analysis, nothing happens. If I click add data source, nothing happens. So right now it is very much just a front end with a back end that doesn't work. I'm actually really disappointed with the output here because it's not even close to working. It looks pretty. It's got a nice little front end here, but it's still a far ways away from being any sort of usable application. Now let's come over to ChatGPT as it's coding for me and building an app. I'm just going to let it do its thing. And I asked the same thing of Gemini. And Gemini actually gave me something that looks relatively usable on the first shot here. Let's give it one of my data sheets and see how it does. Fetch data. Let's analyze data. This is asking for my Gemini API key. I said to do ChatGPT API key, so it's already a little bit off. But still better than Bolt. So I am not disappointed with this just yet. All right, so that's a pretty simple summary of how vibe coding works. Now really the sky's the limit. Whether you want to make yourself a WordPress plugin, a embeddable module for your website, a website in and of itself, flashcards, quizzes, or entire web applications, you can do so with most of the AI models nowadays. And if you want to save a few bucks on some of these vibe coding apps, remember to go to vault.leadgenj.com and see what's available. So you can see here, you can get Replit first month free. You can get Hugging Face 6 months free on the Pro plan. There's just really incredible deals here that you can search through and you never know what's going to be there. Remember, I got Bolt.new for a whole year on the Pro plan. Absolutely free. So if that was your first time seeing vibe coding and it scared you a little bit because you're like, oh my God, what the hell do I need developers for? In a year, this is going to be better than some of the best developers because this is growing and getting better so quickly. Well, your sentiment is absolutely correct, and I actually feel the same way. So I wanted to take just a few minutes right now and talk to you about what I think is going to happen with the future of AI, especially as it pertains to business, especially online business, which I am in. Because I'm not going to lie, I'm both very scared and very excited. I would not want to be a student or a college grad right now because whatever field you're going into is changing unbelievably rapidly. Even for developers, if you're not in the top 1% of developers who are like rock star athletes right now making millions of dollars, if you're in that bottom 90%, you might be unemployed soon because the bottom 90% is going to get out-coded by all of these no-code applications and vibe coding applications. But just about everybody is in trouble, not just professions, but business models entirely. So let's talk about what I'm doing because AI is getting better at an exponential rate. So you need to be prepared for what's next. So here's how I'm preparing. There's one service or sector that I think is going to be protected over the next 5 to 10 years, and that's in the AI business itself. So helping companies implement, learn about AI and automation. Because a lot of businesses are going to be safe. If you serve customers in person, if you have some sort of physical product or physical location, then your company isn't going anywhere. AI is not going to be able to replace that product or physical business. However, it's going to be able to replace a lot of your staff and even a lot of the middlemen. So I'm betting on being able to help those businesses learn about and implement AI so that they can make more revenue with less costs and less people. But not everybody is going to become an AI automation expert and start teaching and start implementing. A lot of you are experts and have been building your companies for a long time. Your SEO agencies, your copywriting services, your lead generation services, your PR services. Lord knows I have a very successful PR company, and I am very afraid of what's next for it. Not just because AI is dominating search. So if AI dominates search and people are just getting answers, then what help is articles? So the way that I'm thinking about it is, okay, I have this PR firm, and I know this is coming. So writing articles needs to be pretty much automated, completely cheap. We need to be focused on SEO-related PR, not to rank on Google, but to be shown by Perplexity and ChatGPT and Claude when people ask it questions. We want to come up first, and we want our clients to come up first. And how else can we do PR that's insulated? For example, social media influencers are not going anywhere. Content creators are not going anywhere. So how can we help those people? Either by getting our clients featured on their platforms or helping those creators build their personal brands, build authority, and get additional traffic to their social channels. These are the things that I'm thinking about as directions for my PR company. And for my lead generation agency, same thing. There's autonomous SDRs now, where instead of me scraping lead data, writing copy, going back and forth with all of the interested leads that come into my pipeline, there's fully autonomous machines now that can do it. You just tell it what your offer is and what you're trying to sell and who you're targeting, and it does everything else from there. Sets up the infrastructure, sets up the LinkedIn accounts, finds the leads to reach out to, writes an omni-channel contact sequence, and then goes back and forth with those contacts until they're booked onto a calendar. Now, I've tried several of these solutions already, and to be frank, they're not there yet. A lot of this stuff isn't fully ready for deployment yet. But a year ago, I was saying AI voice was never going to be there. AI video is never going to be there, and now it is. So chances are a year from now, my cold email services might actually be obsolete, which means I need to change the way that we're doing lead generation. So I'm aligning myself with these AI SDR companies, especially the ones who are going to win. And then I want to help implement them for companies that could use them and need them. And God knows I have a lot of clients that I've built lead generation systems for. If we have a new gold standard solution, which is this autonomous SDRs, I'm going to be the go-to choice for implementing that solution. So think about what it is that you do. Is your service at risk? Is your job at risk? And if it is, you need to figure out what your pivot is going to be. If you're an appointment setter, well, that is likely going to be replaced by AI. We have an AI that talks to all of our inbound leads and books them onto a calendar. And it's really good and it keeps getting better. If you're an emerging attorney, maybe you're just graduating college with a law degree and you want to focus on contract law, well, how long do you think you have before you're basically worthless as AI gets better and better at contracts? So what you need to be doing is figuring out how you can become the foremost expert in AI automation in your field. So if you're a contract attorney, how can you best implement AI automation to help streamline your operations, see more clients for less? And that way you can increase the volume and potentially even help other law firms implement AI into their contract review and writing process. Lastly, I'm doubling down on personal brand and content. Although AI content is getting really good and we're using it to generate and enhance our content, I think people are going to want people more than ever. So the one thing that hopefully never gets devalued by AI is me. So you should be investing in yourself and using AI automation to do it. We use AI automation to create content for our channels, write copy, evaluate new ideas. All of these things are helping me grow my personal brand while I sleep. And I strongly believe that the personal brands that are going to win are the ones that are taking the time to do long, personal, really expert level content just like this and giving it all away, and also using AI automation to help run everything in the background. So the moral of the story is those that use and embrace and implement AI automation over the next 5 years are not only going to be protected, they're going to see massive 5, 10, 20x increases in their salaries and their payouts because they're going to be so much more valuable and so much more scalable than those contract lawyers that don't know how to use AI automation. They're going to take 10 or 20 times as long. They're not going to have as good of an output, and it's not going to be as high quality of work. But if a law firm can hire you, who's a contract lawyer that's also an expert in AI automation, to service the same amount of clients as a law firm who has 100 contract lawyers, you better believe that you're going to get paid for it. And if you're watching this and you're still not going to implement AI automation and go all in on this, then you're going to be in big trouble, because your competitor is going to outperform you. They're going to outwork you. They're going to do it for less money so that they can invest more into their clients. And if you're a professional and you're watching this, or you're just graduating, or you have a 9-to-5 job, you really need to figure out how this is going to integrate into your 9-to-5 job. There's no profession, no job in the world that I can think of right now that's not an all physical job that's not going to be impacted by AI automation. You're going to be able to use this in one way or another inside of your business. So you need to really master this stuff and figure out all the areas where you can use these tools to turn you into a superhuman employee. So the choice is yours. You can either learn it now and win, or you can keep delaying and then you can wait and see what happens. Now, if you're ready, if you're bought in, then you need to join the AI Automation Insiders on School. It's completely free and it's going to be linked down below. This is going to help you master the tools, but also to stay up to date on all of the new resources, tactics, and industry updates that are going to make you an AI savvy entrepreneur. And if you got value in this video, do me a huge favor, drop a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think about this whole space and how you think it's going to affect you and your industry. And if you want to see more like this and continue to learn and get better at AI automation and online business, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. That is all. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.